Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Robyn and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and today we're discussing chapters 45 through 47. Bayana is not here today, but we out here. We out here with Delia. Delia, please introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. What you got going on?
Hey, it's your a menace. I'm bringing menace energy to this here episode in particular. Hi everyone. Y'all probably know me, but if you don't, my name is Delia. She, her pronouns. I am it's not my first time around these parts guesting, but I'm also a podcaster. I host the podcast Culture by Culture, which is part of the B&C Collective, where we take a multi-dimensional exploration into Black and Asian pop cultural ties. There has also been an episode with Wizard Team members. I don't know if it's out yet by the time this is airing, but synergy. We love it.
I always do these things, and then I'm like, this is a podcast. People can't see that shit. Before we get to previously on Wizard Team, two things. One, super excited Delia's here. We apologize in advance because when we figured out that we were doing these chapters, Delia was like, or when we figured out, when we were talking about doing Legendborn, Delia was like, I need to put down a reservation.
I sure did.
I will be attending when we get to this part, and then we found out later that Bayana wasn't going to be able to join us, and so there is, I guess, Porshèa, it's up to you to be our like level-headed logical brain.
It shan't be me.
So that's all on you.
For romance?
Just in general, be level-headed this episode, because it's not me for sure.
Just in general, but definitely for when we get to the parts with Fel. Because
I don't swoon for romance unless they actually get me. And they ain't get me.
I know. That's why it's all on you. You guys also know I am Selwyn trash. I am Selwyn coated in my bones. And I don't even watch anime. And then, Delia loves a romantic angsty heart, like, give it to her. So, see all I have to say. Apologies for the feelings.
Alas, alack.
Earwax. Right. Okay, so, again, before we get into previously on Wizard Team, I just want to acknowledge the fact that Tracy was playing in our faces on Instagram and social media.
And the swooners' faces in particular.
Playing, okay? In our face, said, take it, deal.
Yeah.
We got a really exciting announcement. The next book in the Legendborn cycle will be Oathbound. We have a title, y'all. The title is Oathbound, and it's book 3. It is coming out early 2025, which is rude, but we'll take it. There's a date.
I mean, technically, we're supposed to get a Mari next year, so I feel like we'll be like hopscotching. We'll be like, yay, here we are, pacing ourselves. We'll have a Mari to excite us next year, and then Legendborn to excite us the year
Okay.
after.
It works out well. Like, listen, Wizard Team, technology doesn't love us, but timing does. Like, we've gotten really good timing here. And then we found out also that there will be 4 books. So we're going to get Oathbound and then a 4th book to wrap it all up, which I am really excited about, just because I think that, like, as we're getting to these chapters 2 and what we talked about last episode, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of questions, and we get some answers in Bloodmarked, but I think we get more questions than answers in Bloodmarked. The world definitely like deepens in Bloodmarked, and we get to see more outside of campus and outside of just like the small number of people that
provincial town that is the UNC Chapel Hill campus.
Exactly.
I will say, like,
and we get.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and in like building that world, we also, I think, get more questions that come from like that expanding the world. So I'm excited that we'll have enough time to really like, hopefully, Tracy, if you're listening.
Hey, girl.
There are some questions that need answers, and now we have 4 books to get those
Tracy,
answers.
if you're listening, I got several bones to pick with you, but you're not listening, so it's fine. But I have several bones. I will say, when I did finish reading Bloodmarked, like, for me personally, I feel like there's so many series. Like, this is something I deal with personally, like reading books. I'm like, sometimes you just want the one story. So usually I would not necessarily be happy that a book is going to turn out to be, or not a book, I'm sorry, a series is going to be longer than I already anticipated, because I'm like, girl, I am an adult. I do not have time to be reading all these books like that. However, like Robyn was saying, when I finished Bloodmarked, I was like, girl, Tracy, I don't know how you're going to wrap this up in one book. I don't know, girl. I really don't know. So I'm really, really happy that we are going to have the time to let the story breathe, answer the questions, solve some love triangles.
As long as some of those questions that are answered are specifically about Bree's mother and Stell's mother and how they connected. I just need, there's so many questions, even from just like the last couple of chapters that we've read, so last episode to now, that I'm like, oh no, like Tracy Deonn must answer for her writing class. Like, I need to know. Like, you're not going to get away from the series that you've written without giving us some answers about what these ladies have been up to, and like the magic that has influenced Bree, even into what we're going to get into today. Like, I need specific answers from the point of view of at least Bree's mom, if not also Stell's mom. Pretty please and thank you.
Honestly, especially those two. Like, it's getting to the point in my head canons where it's like almost, not to bring her up, but kind of like a Marauder setup. I'm like, I just kind of want the adventures of Bree and Stell's mom, like a little bit. Yeah, like just give me that little flashback, or a novella. Like, I'm
right. I am not choosy about how. I just want to know I'm gonna get it. You can wrap it up in whatever package you want to put it in. It could be whatever holiday you choose to unveil it. Like, I'm down. Just as long as I know I'm getting it.
How thoughtful of you, Porshèa. Tracy.
I am so magnanimous.
I'm not asking too much. You will give me this, but you can give it to me in whatever package you so choose. But you will give me this. I think that for me, I'm excited because I can't think of very many like 4-book series off the top of my head. Like, you get the trilogies, you get the like multi-book,
get a duology every once in
a while, which I always think are really great. And then you get like those multi, 7, 8, 10, 13 infinity
5 minimum
series. 5 minimums. And so I think like it's something that we talk about a lot, especially in television, even though I haven't been watching any television the last couple of years, but knowing how a story ends and knowing that you're going to have enough time to tell that story, but then like not going beyond it and not like trying to like, extend it out. Not saying that like, things.
No filler episodes.
Exactly.
No filler chapters.
And like things change, you know what I mean? Like, Legendborn is a huge hit. People love it. I'm very upset when I realized that she did not win the Hugo Award for Bloodmarked or Legendborn for YA, which do better.
That's on
them.
Yep,
that's not on Tracy. That's on them. But like, it is like an unequivocal success of a book. So things might change, or we'll do whatever. But I am excited that we know it will be 4 books. From what I read, what Tracy said, like, she's excited that she'll be able to like have the space to tell the full story and like go into things that she wasn't sure she'd be able to really go into before. But
including the mother's point of view.
Exactly. Just a chapter or 2, if she would like. Again, however she wants to do it.
Look, if you want to just be like, I'm gonna open up this book and you're gonna be like, whose point of view of this? And then you get 3 pages in and you're like, oh, it's the mother. I'm fine with that. Again, I just need it.
I mean, it can even be a bonus book. The one thing I am mad about, though,
it can be a short story included
yeah,
within. I feel like that for it to make sense, it's probably going to be included in the story because of how like the kids are kind of understanding more about what's going on. It kind of gets like wrapped up in it all.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. But again, I am not.
The one thing I'm a little bit mad about in this announcement, I will say, is that there will be a bonus chapter from Sel's perspective, I believe, or someone else's perspective.
Possibly Nick's?
No,
William. He's the one
It's
who's
William's
out.
perspective.
Will.
In Blood at the, is it in Oathbound or is it in Bloodmarked?
It's gonna be in the paperback version of Bloodmark that's coming out.
And I just need, because as I don't know if we talked about this on With It Team before, I am a paperback girly. I have Bloodmarked in hardback. I have Legendborn. I have an arc of Legendborn, and then I have Legendborn in hardback too. And listen, I will buy it. I have like 6 copies of Persuasion, and if you guys ever want to, like, if you find a cool copy of Persuasion and you want to send it to me, go forth and prosper. I would appreciate it. I'm trying to collect every single edition of Persuasion I can find. But so I'm not like, oh my God, I can't have all of these different books. But like now I'm gonna like definitely need to get the paperback of Bloodmarked, which means I need to get the original paperback of Legendborn, which means like, am I gonna go through and get like the special edition from like the UK, or you know what I mean? It's just the whole thing. So that's the only thing I'm a little bit.
That's the unfortunate thing about being a book buyer in these days is the like you're not lacking for choice, and the special editions make points. I just need for the universe to accept more paperback special editions, because then you can get the 2 for 1. Give me the paperback edition in a special,
and also
with all the sprayed edges and the in page. You can do cool stuff with paperback, and I don't feel like enough people are taking advantage of that. I had the gilded ones had a good paperback copy.
I need publishers to understand. Some of us are neurodiverse and we have like a textural thing against hardback. Some may have a textural thing against paperback. I don't know. That's not me. I have a texture thing against hardback. And then I'm like, but if I don't,
it hurts your hands.
If I don't buy the book, then it won't get to paperback. But I don't want to buy the book in hardback knowing I'm not going to read it. I want it in paperback. Just give it, release them both.
They can't make as much money that way, which is what it all comes down to. Which is so silly because, like, I don't know why. I'm sure they've done the math, so I'm not saying it's not true, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Right?
Yeah, they're cheaper. It doesn't make sense to me because the people.
Why wouldn't paperback be the first thing, and then
because they want you to have no other option?
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
You're forced to take. It's either paperback or audiobook at the time, whenever they're first released. Maybe ebook. Maybe like those are your 3. But not paperback, because you have no other choice but to, if you want it physically, you're gonna have to get the hardback, and it's gonna be the most expensive version of all of them.
Yeah, because I was like, it doesn't make sense because people who are buying paperbacks and waiting for paperbacks were never going to buy the hardbacks. But you're right, there are people who are like might have gotten a cheaper option had it been available, but because it wasn't available, they're like, I'm going to get the hardback, which
is usually the most expensive version.
Yeah, I usually get caught up in the like, if I don't know why I am so egotistical, but I'm like, if I don't buy this, it will not be a success, and then it will never get to paperback. Like my individual one sale,
you specifically,
my sale is the reason. I do this all the time too with like with TV shows and stuff, where I'm like, the fact that I waited to binge is why it didn't get picked up for the next season. This is my fault. I take personal responsibility, which is like ridiculous, but also, I don't know, it's how I feel.
I mean, sometimes it's like the mood of the audience, though. Like if I'm doing a thing and I know other people are doing a thing, then it's likely that a lot of us are feeling the same way. And so the whole audience that probably exists for this thing is trying to wait to binge, and then we're messing up the actual impact and ability for the show to come back because we're all waiting to binge. I understand that. Sidebar.
That was about the sidebar to the sidebar.
I was like, we've been sidebarring.
We need to get back onto the main track at some point on this. But I was going to just say, sidebar in relation to TV series. I respect the 4-book decision, whatever it takes to wrap up the story perfect. And like relatedly, and sidebar really, I love that like for TV shows that are doing that, like Low-Key did wrap up its whole second season in 6 episodes. So I'm like, if you, that's not even like, I feel like 8 has been the typical shorter series kind of timing that has happened for a lot of shows, but 6 episodes is like becoming a thing, it seems. So maybe 4 and 6, like that's going to be the new like trend, I guess, in books. I honestly think it does sound like, it just seems like the story, she knows the story will be wrapped up and contained within the 4, and she's not trying to push for a 5th or whatever to make it like a whole, like a 5 or whatever, which I appreciate that. Like, yeah, we were saying that, like, I just don't like whenever there's a filler.
I like when authors know the bounds of their story, and not just authors of like books, but like writers in general know the bounds of their story and stick with it. Right. And yeah, it really seems to be the case in this situation. Like there are series that go on forever and there's filler, and there are series that we're only giving you a duology. That's all we can take a risk on, and you can feel it needed the other book.
Yeah. You're like, y'all, you really and sadly there are books that like have like like I can think of one particular series that like, I won't say it right now, but if it had been just 2 books and they had cut out some of the filler, I probably would have enjoyed it so much more. The 3rd book that's out, I probably would have read it as a second one. I haven't read the 3rd book because of how much filler was in the first 2. I was like, should I pick up the 3rd one?
I feel like I'll say it. It's controversial to say in y'all's podcast, but I can say it. That I feel needed another book. Like I really loved it. Don't get me wrong, but Ray Bear, I felt like I needed another book. The second book, I was like, okay, I still have a few questions. I'd like a third book. It was very good, but again, this is publishing decisions.
Maybe the answers will be in the, because she's gonna stay in the world of Ray Bear, but it's from different, so maybe that'll be if it's more world building questions than it is like specific character questions. I felt like the story tied up well enough for me for Ray Bear, but I also had started the series disliking the main character because the audio book
that's what y'all said, and I liked it well enough, but I forget what other book.
I think she's the same. She stays with a job.
She is.
Which
she does.
Love that for her.
And she's a Black lady. Yes. Get
love
paid.
that for her. But there is something, and I think it might also be because she was the same reader for Legendborn, right?
And I liked her in that too.
And
no,
I did not. And there was another one that we read, Porshèa, because we were talking about, and that's how we figured out that it was like this reader.
Somebody in the community recently read, in the BNC community recently read something, and she was the audiobook narrator, and I read it too, and that was the first. I can't remember which one it was, but I was like, oh, I kind of hear it now.
I think she read Lone Women.
It was something maybe
I have to
I didn't read that in audiobook.
But yeah,
we'll pick it up. We'll pick up on this later.
But an audiobook reader, they're like, I don't know, partially too. I just recently not DNF'd because I'm going to read them, but like stopped reading like 2 audiobooks in a row because the reader just wasn't giving me what I wanted, and so I was like, narrator. Sorry, the narrator wasn't giving me what I wanted, and so I was like, I got to pick this up.
You said reader for a second. I was like, you weren't giving you what you wanted. Which sometimes I'm not. I'm like, oh well.
Sometimes, no, a lot of times there's another book that I just dropped, and I literally was like, not right now. I can't do it. Like, this is on me.
I talked about this in the
me thing.
Culture by Culture episode with Porshèa and Bayana, or maybe it was after we recorded, I don't remember. But like, yeah, it's so mood dependent sometimes. Like, I feel so bad because everybody loves this book, and I could tell like it was just purely a mood. It wasn't like, just wasn't the time for me, but I had to DNF Cemetery Boys. Like, on paper, it's supposed to be for me, but it just was not in the moment. I was like, yeah, I don't want to, because it's actually better to DNF, in my opinion, than to force yourself to read it when you know you're not in the mood. Then you're going to dislike it and hold it against the book when it's not the book's fault. So,
yeah, exactly. And I think like, because I'm a mood reader and like I also like binge genres, I think that's also important to know. But either way, okay.
We should maybe,
that was a great aside. We should talk about previously on Wither Team and get into these. These are, I mean, we have 2 shorter chapters, but like the chapter, it's still a meaty, we get a lot. There's a lot happening here. So Let's go.
Yes, angsty, action-packed goodness, and that is how we left off in the previous episode on Wizard Team, where Bree went back home post being with her dad at the Waffle House, and she touches the bracelet that in the box that he gave her, and when she does, she goes on a memory walk where her mom tells her about her family's root and the bad luck curse that comes with it. Apparently, this is all happening while they're at like a fair, and this is young Bree being told by her mom, but she's young, so she doesn't understand everything. For current Bree to actually understand what's going on, so she's learning all this through herself, in a weird way, but in a memory. And so the curse can only live in one person at a time. They only can have daughters, and the magic that they pass burns them out so that no one has a long time with their mother. Bree's mom helped save people when the gates opened into campus in the 90s and has been hiding from the order ever since. She believes not telling Bree would help Bree to hide from the order and stay safe from their watch. So when Bree actually like takes on all this information, she's like, okay, I have to do my mom's will. I'm gonna be smart the same way she was, and I'm going to say bygones to the order. So she's going to the gala, but only in the understanding of like, I'm getting out of here, like this is gonna be my big farewell, don't cry for me Argentina kind of moment. And so Alice and Charlotte help her get ready. They didn't go shopping, so Charlotte, who knows all the girls, helps to get her some dress options, and Alice helps her get her hair and everything and make the choices together. Bree comes across the perfect dress. They get her together. She shows up at the gala, walks in the door. Nobody talks to her besides the black man who's a doorman. Everyone else just like, she just walks in and no one is immediately trying to sit her or anything. So it's only after she kind of like is in the room for a while that some people that are in the order and with her have like popped up and start talking to her, including Nick, who flirts with her, and which annoys Tor to no end. Fitz gets an attitude because Nick is like, Bond can't sit with us. And Cell was initially, Bree saw him when she walked in the room, but over time he is nowhere to be seen. But Bree can still feel him. His eyes, his gaze is on her body. She can feel him in the room. And before Nick and Bree can fully just have their flirtatious moment to themselves in the center of the room dancing, here comes Isaac, Father Davis's, Nick's father, his King's Mage, and he interrupts their dance because they are fun blockers. And that is where we are today. Chapter 45.
Let's go.
That's where we left off on Glee. Oh my goodness.
All right, on Glee.
Oh man. So
what a series of chapters this is.
Yeah, so we start now, we're in chapter 45, and Bree is looking at Isaac like, who is this man's, right? Isaac tells Nick his dad wants him to join him in the antechamber. Nick reluctantly leaves Bree with Isaac, says he'll find her after the selection, but it's very like telling how hesitant Nick is when like he recognizes that Isaac isn't following him to the antechamber. He's like, I'm just okay. Isaac and Bree have a staring competition, and that wakes Grandma Charles up, who has, been sharing Bree's consciousness. Grandma's like, I don't like him. Bree's like, I don't like him either. And Bree's like, but I really need to focus, Grandma. So can you back up so I can, I can't split my focus. And so then Bree's grandma fades in the background. And Bree says that
I love how she was like, I'm willing to go. You don't gotta tell me twice. However, I needed you to know before you kept moving in this room. I already don't like this room, but I especially don't like this man right here.
Well, it says too. I just want to like read it. Like, so she's like, I feel the full force of Isaac's gaze on my face. If Cell's attention feels like sparks or embers, Isaac is a sweltering late July heat. His fathomless eyes bore into mine. Even still,
Sounds like the sunken place
right.
to me.
Even still, I don't break our eye contact. I didn't come here to cower. Who is this man? Is what her grandmother says in her head. Like, who is this man? Why is he staring you down like this? So, like, grandma was immediately like, constant vigilance. So, she says that grandma fades so fast and quiet, she worries that she may have been gone for good, but she closes the door behind her for now and feels it tight because she's like, I don't want Isaac to know at all what I got going on internally, like the root craft I have going on internally, because this man is he a threat, he a danger.
The active root craft.
The active root craft.
The active, yeah.
And so then Isaac like has a small smile, thinking like, oh, that Bree kind of lost the staring contest, and that's fascinating. Which is scary as hell to me. And Cell comes to Bree's rescue.
Well, we learned that he figured out why.
Yeah.
He figured out that he can
like sense Cell's mesmer
with a mesmer.
Yeah, that it didn't take,
and it didn't last. Yeah. So I thought that's what his comment for like
the fascinating is definitely he's like he is roaming through Bree's mind. Without permission, and we don't like this man.
No.
We don't like him. Nobody likes him.
Roaming through someone's mind without consent? Absolutely not. On top of the rest of it.
Just, this is a bad man. Okay? But then Cell shows up, coming to Bree's rescue, grabs her, like, not grabs, but like,
he saves her.
Appears at her elbow. He is in black on black, of course. Black suit, black shirt, black tie. If Nick is a secret agent, then Cell is an assassin. Ooh. And we're here for it. Cell is like, what's up, Master Isaac? Isaac slides his gaze to Cell and is like, oh, my favorite pupil. Bree is like, oh shit, what's going? And Cell's like, all right, I'm going to take Bree. I need to talk to our once born guest, which is really interesting that I thought that he chooses the word guest, because Bree, to the rest of the order and everyone here, is still in the trial.
In the running to become top model.
Yeah. Unless there was a lot of talk happening, only the people that were staring at her, Nick and Cell, when she runs away, knows that she like may not be coming back. But she didn't say anything definitive. She just dipped.
They have a feeling about who belongs here. And like, so they're not going to go out of their way to act like she belongs with them. She can be the guest. So I don't think that, because it doesn't startle anyone around them. No one around them who could be eavesdropping goes, oh, girl, guest. Like they're all looking at her like, oh, she doesn't belong here. So she's that guest term is like fine.
Yeah, but I think it's more pointed to me that Cell says it in Bree's hearing. Like, there's no one else.
I think it's more for me, for Isaac. It's like you taught me, and you also taught me that we're supposed to treat guests a certain way. Like, you're not supposed to try to be probing her, but she's not supposed to, you're supposed to give her guest rights, not like be over here trying to probe in her brain.
Yeah, I think it's definitely for Isaac too, but I think like, I don't know. I just took note of like calling her a guest. So then Cell tells Bree, or takes her to the back of the dance floor, and they start, and like Bree thinks that they're just gonna like leave the dance floor, and Cell's like, and they start to dance. He grabs her waist, and says, a bit of advice: never look at Master Merlin directly in the eye. At his age, Master Isaac's mesmer is far more powerful than mine and works much faster. Which last episode, Porshèa, we were talking about like the vampirism that kind of comes through, like lore that comes through with the Merlins, and this was definitely one of those for me, where it's like, if you are into vampires, you should know, like, if you look them directly, if you make direct eye contact, that's how they can bespell you and get
glamour.
Like, not even glamour, like they can literally, in a lot of vampire lore, they direct eye contact and they have you under control. Like direct control. They can, like, as long as, kind of like the angels in, or the opposite of the inverse of the angels in Doctor Who. Like, if you're looking directly at a vampire, you are no longer in control. So that's also, like, later on we find out, like, exactly what Isaac was doing with that direct eye contact. Like Porshèa said, he's able to, like, kind of read, go into her mind and, like, read the, like, what Sel's mesmer does and stuff. Sel tells Bree that he's surprised that she came to the gala, and she explains about Disney movies. And he's like, I thought you were coming to say goodbye. And she's like, I am. So
it's so funny.
It's another moment where Nick does not pick up on that. And I think this is, like, something that's really interesting in the Sel brick triangle, because now it is definitely becoming a triangle. Nick sees Bree and is so, like, overcome that she comes back and stuff, but I think he, like, is looking at her in a very hopeful and what he wants to happen manner, and, like, has kind of lost, not forgotten exactly why Bree came and joined, or came into the Order and infiltrated the Order in the first place. I don't think he's forgotten, but I think he's kind of lost sight of that because of, like, the Camland of it all, and just really, really wanting her on his side, and feeling like she came back and they're gonna go through this entire thing together. And so it's more of a hopeful reading of what Bree's presence here means. Whereas Sel,
he knows
the last time that Bree and Sel were together, like, had his own, like, shocking, revelation, and it's like understanding grief and things is more realistic, and it's like, oh, you're here to say goodbye. Partially because he was with her when she was, like, it was an accident. My mom hit, like, he heard her say, like, my mom did all of this stuff to keep me away from the Order, and I just was selfish and did the exact opposite. So I think he also has, like, a little bit more context.
Yeah, but okay, look, I want to be clear.
No,
just for background for me, when I first read this book, look, I do not usually like a love triangle. Like, I think they're pointless. A lot of the times the stories are not done well. But I was saying before we started recording, like, I feel like we're in a love triangle renaissance. That, or I'm just maturing in a way that I appreciate love triangles more. I'm not really sure. But this is one of the first books that I read where I was like, they really got me in the first half. Like, I was like, I don't see anything wrong with Nick. So you're gonna try and bring Sel later in the last half, and I don't think I'm gonna see it. And, like, when y'all have already covered that, but when they're, like, sneaking around the house or whatever, I was like, that was my first, like, ooh, red flag. Oh, okay, no, stay firm, Delia. And then we get to these chapters, and I'm like, oh, never mind. And this is partly why we'll get a little bit more into it because I have more thoughts on it. But, like, he, besides just being hot, obviously, but, like, he really does understand and see Bree in a way that, yeah, like you're talking about, Nick just does not seem to. It's like this idealization that, I mean, I still do like Nick, like, I really do, so I'm not trying to, like, crap on him too much, but, like, I didn't realize until rereading these chapters, because I've only read Legendborn once, I'm not a big rereader, that it stood out so much to me that I'm like, oh, like, he's kind of centering himself in this. That doesn't mean he doesn't love Bree, but, like, he is centering himself in this moment and in this experience. And I don't think I picked up on it in real time because I was in the middle of making the switch in anyway.
Yeah.
That's honestly why partially why I don't see it for Nick.
I was gonna say, Porshèa, you didn't see it for Nick from the time he stepped
but, like, partially why is that I think, honestly, like, Nick, and I guess that relates to, like, to their relationship, and that, like, Bree launched him on a journey that he was not trying to be on in the first place. So there's, like, when it comes to their relationship, like, there's a lot of, like, compromise and, like, oh, I'm going to support you, then you support me kind of thing. Like, they're kind of, like, it's like a, not necessarily transactional, but it feels like they've kind of, like, give and take. Like, they feel they expect give and take from each other. And while Nick gets possibly, like, what comforts her, he doesn't necessarily get where her brain is a lot of the time. And Cell, on the other hand, like, I think part of the reason why she is so disturbed by Cell is because he's able to read where her mind is. Like, he's able to disturb where her, like, I see your wavelength. I'm gonna take it to Demon, but like that's where he was.
Those
that's
darker
what he
undercurrents, right? Because like this whole story is a story about
Yeah,
like going through grief. Like she has dark thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, but after Bree, and I think that's why she was also like, I think that's partially why I think Cell is very aware of how attractive he is, especially to people who are like into like brooding guys. So I feel like he played with her. He was like, oh, like she's over here, she's probably attracted to me because like, oh, I'm the like darkness and the light or whatever. Like if she's gonna like attract, I'm gonna F with her, right? And I get that, but for this chapter specifically, I was thinking about like how Nick very much is not thinking about, like, even though he hasn't spoken to Bree really since everything was unveiled, if the bare minimum is like what she gave him was that like the order wasn't responsible for my mother's death, I've got to go, which is basically what he got from her, then like if he was thoughtful towards her, he would not want to keep her wrapped up in the order, which he said from the beginning was dangerous for her. Like if he really was more oriented to her safety, that's what he would want. And yet he's already stepping into the gala. Like if Bree's here, she's gonna be my page. Like that's where his brain is. Whereas Cell is like, oh, I'm hoping that she's putting her safety first. I'm hoping she's gonna get out of here because she should get out of here. And I'm like there's a difference in like love where you're like more like you're looking out for the other person's needs more than like what you might want from them. And I feel like that's the difference in their relationships, especially as it comes to like where we are presently with it, is that like one of them expects give and take, and the other one is like, I know you gotta do what you gotta do to be safe, because also because Cell knows what being unsafe in the order looks like. So he's like, I would rather you do the safer road. And
that's such a great way to put it,
tonight.
is like being oriented towards Bree or not. Like Nick, we'll even see it in Blood Marked, is like more oriented to what he needs. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but like when you're talking about like a romantic relationship, like Cell is always oriented once he, stops trying to, I mean, even when he's trying to murder her, really, he's always oriented toward Bree.
He didn't try to he did not get murdered. She didn't get murdered. He threatened her with murder, which I did not like. I did bench him for that. But he like, again, I think that was on his like, if you want to see a bad boy, baby, there's your chance. Left cheek, right cheek. Like he was like, I need you to see. I need you to see that if you're trying, like, you say bad boy, I'm actually him. That's me. I am awful. I will do bad things. And to you, if you try me. So don't do it. And I think, is again, that was very pure villainy, and I did not like him for that. That was bullying. But he actually, in doing that, was being more forward thinking of like, she needs to get out of here. She needs to back up. Than Nick being like, oh, what can I do to make sure she can get out of here? What is the long game? How can I make sure at the end of this she's out? Like, he didn't do that.
Yeah, I think for me it's more and I really appreciate this in like Tracy's writing, and I think it's like intentional too. It reminds me a lot of like how like even though Nick is trying to distance himself from the order, understands the flaws of the order, he is still very much privileged and coming from the system, and has never felt like an outsider in this system. So once he's kind of accepted within himself that like Camlan's coming, he can't really escape, he then just like kind of takes back on all of these things, even though he knows that they're not great. Like he recognizes the flaws, but like we've talked about, like, it's a cult. Like once he realizes that he can't 100% get away, and he kind of knew in his back of his brain he couldn't 100% get away anyway. It was like, it was all kind of symbolic gestures of like, I want things to be different. Once he lets that go, he also lets go of, or like I guess he just accepts everything fully, and then loses sight of like how that is not actually possible for Bree, who's an outsider. And I think Cell also has a bit of an outsider. I mean, he's a Merlin and he's very much like of this world, but Merlins are also kind of treated as like tools, really. Like the way that we see them treat Cell, he's very objectified. He's very much a tool and very much like can be and will be discarded. Like the way that Daddy Davis talks about him throughout, it's like, you're only as good as what you are able to provide us and what you're able to do for us. And the minute that you cannot do these things, like you can be, disposed of. And so I think because of where Cell is at in his positioning to the order versus where Nick is, he does constantly see the fullness of Bree and like every aspect of her. And that is like where kind of Nick falls short. I also, just because I am very Cell coded and like he was written for my particular leanings, I think that there's something, I don't know if irresistible is like the right way of saying it, but there's something about how, that's how he would say it. There's something about how Cell sees Bree in her fullness that makes her want to like distance herself, especially because she does feel for Nick. And I think this is like the like very much like she's 16 portion of this too, is like kind of like I decided I like Nick first, and so that's the choice, as opposed to like maybe what I feel for, like maybe I need to step back and like really like examine what I'm feeling for Cell. Like she's just like, nope, that's the forbidden. So I think that like there's also something about that I think Porshèa, what you're saying, like Nick or Cell like knows that like she's interested in him and intrigued by him and like is kind of playing that up. But and playing with her and her emotions in playing that up, but it also like makes Bree feel unsettled and uncomfortable that she and Lord loves an avoidant. She's just like, nope, not going to put that, like she said like, okay, we're tearing down walls. There is no more before Bree and after Bree, but there's very much like a Bree is a compartmentalizer, and she very much like throw all these like uncomfortable feelings about Cell into this box and let's focus.
It's worked so far. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
To be fair to her, like and like K-drama rules.
Yes,
that's
exactly what I've been thinking. I'm like, well, technically, K-drama rules.
And K-drama rules, they play dark, because K-drama rules will have you like, technically you'll see the second male lead first in the show sometimes, and so you're like, oh, she met him the first, so this might like they might actually give us a really good second male leads kind of thing going on. And then you get 6 episodes in, there's a flashback. They were in kindergarten and they met each other, so they were true loves, and you're like, oh goodness, that's the real one,
because it's always whoever met first. So in K-drama lore, so they'll retcon it real quick. They're like, oh yeah, well actually they knew each other when they were 5.
Actually, they met. So I'm like, so K-drama rules, Cell is first, but then and I feel like Cell honestly he might have met her earlier because of their mom.
Waiting on that flashback, Tracy.
Waiting again, however you want to provide that. Just
provide it.
Just putting that out there. But I think that it's so funny to me because K-drama rules that it would be Cell, like, and I think in Bree's head, if she's like weighing it like whatever, I feel like she kind of is going back to that too, because she keeps like for a good chunk of like the first act, she keeps going back to Cell in the trees in the park, what he smelled like, how his magic kind of still smells the same to her as it was when they met in the woods. And I'm like, she's still there. She's still in their first meet. Like she's still there. I wish this wasn't
a podcast. I wish y'all could see all the faces I've been making this whole time, because let me tell you what. Ooh, it's so good.
If you're a baddie, you can see it.
Did I mention the cologne? I think it comes.
Yeah, no, we're not quite there. We
Yeah,
can move forward.
Yeah,
How about we move forward?
So,
because that's my favorite part.
Yeah. So they're still dancing. Stella's warned her about Isaac and like asked why she's still here, and she's like Disney movies, and she did come to say goodbye. And then Bree is like,
wait, I just want to also
hypothetical, not so hypothetical.
Wait,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I just also want to highlight she says she's here to say goodbye. And his response is, if that's your wish. Why? Because Sel's like, whatever you want, girl. Like, I just really like those words in particular, like that, how Tracy wrote them. And, you know, she's talked a lot about how she writes these two characters. But something about I can't exactly put my finger on it, but the way he phrases it, even specifically, just makes me feel like, yeah,
like
very much giving that. Sorry.
Like, I will do what is best and what you want and need. Like that. And my feelings.
You drive what you want.
And my feelings do not play a role.
And we'll see that even in these chapters. These chapters were so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Onward.
Yes. And Nick thinks that that's what he's doing, but he's not. But he thinks he is, but he's not. But he's not a bad guy.
Does he think he thinks he's that?
I think he thinks that Bree is aligned with him. Like, so aligned that if he wants it, she must also want it.
I think Nick is in a place of like, I know what's best for us to navigate being in the order, and it's like, okay, but you've adapted to the idea that you have to be in the order again. You haven't gotten back to who you were when you first started off, where you're like, I don't want to have anything to do with the order. And like,
and I think that might be true.
How dedicated were you to actually leaving in the first place? If it revert back to,
I don't think that is. I think that is true, but I don't think that is conscious. I think Nick, in Nick's conscious mind, thinks that they are on the same page. If I'm thinking this, then Bree is thinking this. If I'm feeling this, then Bree is feeling this.
I think that is.
And he's just like kind of projecting his.
But you know who's projecting that energy from? His bounds. He's being bound to Cell. He knows that Cell can feel him. He knows that Cell can understand what he's going through. He's projecting his relationship with Cell.
But also more broadly, everybody's been oriented towards him his whole life. You know, he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know,
his will has been everyone's command in his brain.
Yeah.
And I think because he thinks he is disillusioned.
He's a good leader. But also, he's like, I'm a good leader. I'm not gonna lead anyone astray. If I make a choice, it's for everyone's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that. But I also think he thinks, because he sees the order for what it is, that he won't fall prey to people are just falling in line with me because of who I am.
It's a lot how a lot of politicians get tripped up when they first get to Congress. They have high ideals, high aspirations, and then oop.
Like, he knows, like, he'll look at Yvonne and be like, oh no, you only are agreeing with me because I'm author Cyan, and you do not actually, you're not hearing me, you're just going along to get along because of who I am. But then he looks at Bree and thinks, oh no, we are just on the same page. You get me, you know me, and we are agreed. Because of what I feel for you and what you feel for me.
It's also the 16-year-old of it all. Anyway. You get me and know me, but I can't then therefore think you get me and know me, but still want something different. That doesn't.
Yeah.
But also, like, have we had a conversation about this thing?
Why?
So I can be completely sure.
Why do we need to have a conversation? We are fated.
Fated romances. Can I just put that out there? Are some of my least favorite, which is why the K-drama trope of like, yeah, but actually they were always meant to be together because they knew each other since they were a kid.
I don't mind them sometimes because I think they're kind of funny how they set it up. I'll be like, so the one time whenever she fell and her face is on the sand, he was a little boy, he held her back up. Like,
that's why they're meant to be. They really be doing it, and I'm like, okay.
I find fated romances to be very silly, and I think that they can be done well, but they're not my favorite, and I'm always like,
I don't mind. I don't mind them half the time. I don't know what it is. I think it's partially the humor.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's very funny, but also the one that I really liked was like 1% happy, 1% for whatever marriage. I gotta remember. I'd look it up, but. It's fated because it's like a contract marriage of convenience because of like their families haven't like made this contract when they were like young. But when you see what actually happened when they were young, you're like, oh, this is so cute. This is adorable. I love this as an origin story for a romance. So it's like, it's a faded romance, but it's like a cute faded romance. Like, I don't know. I feel like they can be done pretty well.
I think they can be done well. They're just like, to me, they're very silly. I love them, but I do love a marriage of convenience. Anyway.
Moving forward,
because Bree will be. So Bree is like hypothetical that's not really a hypothetical, and asks about using ether to manipulate existing objects, and then tells him about her mom's bracelet. And Cell is like, that's precision mesmer work that he's never heard of. And I'm like, that's because your mama got skills. Your mama, Cell, not her mama. Your mama did that.
Also at this point, the warm prick of his gaze dances over her cheeks, mouth, and throat. And I just want to highlight that because I'm bringing menace energy. Like, Cell, please. Continue.
He can't help it, okay? He got that magnetism, and he's not even
got that dog in him.
Trying to
anyway.
Okay, but here we go. I'm about to unleash Delia. I'm about to unleash myself. It's all on you, Porshèa, to keep it together.
Surprisingly,
Are you ready?
it hasn't happened yet. This is not even us unleashed.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Are you ready? We about to go. Cell tells her that she looks stunning, and she tells him that his magic smells much better than his cologne. And then Cell's like,
his brain short circuit.
You can smell my you can smell my magic, and you like the smell of my magic. I mean,
his reaction, the fact that, okay, see, this is what sealed the deal, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to see it. When I first read these books, because back in the chapters before, when she's like, oh, I can smell his magic, it smells good, or whatever, we then get them like sneaking around doing sneaky stuff, and the smell of his magic comes up there, and I'm like, oh, this is strong, this is a really strong case. But then she tells him about it. Child, I had to close the book. I was like, well, that's it for Nick. The fact that his face goes blank, like, she has really just like short circuited his brain because excuse me, you can smell my castings? Pardon? Okay. You're remarkable.
First off, so I'm gonna go forward a little bit, or back a little bit. So when he's telling her that she looks stunning, he goes, it's the truth, you do, even though you're distraught. And then Bree's like, I'm not distraught. And he leans so close that his lips brush against her ear, and he whispers, liar. And he stands back with a small smile, and he's like, I got you. I did that.
Again, oriented towards
who's unbalanced. Who's unbalanced now, Bree? That little brush of my lips against your ear, you're discombobulated.
And she's like, okay.
And then she's like, your magic smells much better than your cologne. And also, like, it's immediately kind of like, uh-oh, did I say that out loud? Like, it gives me flashbacks of when she said something about Nick left me. When she was very much all on Nick, and then she was like, oh no, I look like a fool in front of people. But like the accidental slip of her letting him know that his magic smells better, that she likes the smell of his magic.
And it's a slip because she's been thinking it so often. That's how you can slip, because it's been constantly on her mind anytime this man is around.
Since the Quarry, he has
all up in her mind.
Like every time.
Anyway,
but he, like, his smell, like, every time she talk, like, it's very noticeable. We've noted this every episode. Every time I feel like we haven't made an episode without her talking about how his magic smells.
All
I don't think that's
up
happened.
In her mind. So it's such a, like, you make those slip ups when they're just such a fact. Like, you're like, oh, everybody knows this. But you just say
everyone knows.
And then you realize, like, oh, just me? Oh,
oh, or like, oh, I said it out loud. I feel like
it was like, it was an unspoken truth.
Yes.
She's like, you know, your magic smells good.
We all know it,
but he doesn't. We all know it, but we're not going to say that out loud because it's weird to point out. So then she's like, it hits me a second too late that the conversation has taken a turn towards the intimate, and that it's all my fault. I fight the urge to run from his curious gaze, and he's like, you can smell my castings. And then his grin completely unguarded and filled with something like awe. You are remarkable.
How you?
Things have shifted.
The line for me is the things have taken a turn toward the intimate, because like
turn for the intimate.
Because like she's just thinking this is a fact, but it's the realization like, oh, nobody can do that, and also, oh, that's really intimate that I've been smelling your magic this whole time, and now I've told you. Like, this is, please tell me, like, Tracy, please answer for these crimes. Hello? The fact that I shifted like, so hard. I'm like, oh, itself. Oops.
Not only smelling your magic, which is like this another mystery girl.
Yes.
What can Bree do? What are Bree's powers? But that it smells good to me.
And that other magic, like, doesn't feel good, smell good. Because also, she hasn't said this, but like, his magic makes her feel good, which he kind of knows, which will, in Bloodmarked, we talk about that more. But, like, hello? Can we, how was I, okay, we're going to move.
She just met Isaac and is like, oh, his magic
feels
is
icky,
not
sweltering.
It feels icky, slimy, like
Smells is
it's not that good heat. It's that gross heat. Smells is warm and cozy, and his is like, I need to take a shower.
And we're gonna get to it, but like this is where Tracy's crimes come into full effect, because what follows, I remember being so mad. Like, I was like, I don't dislike Nick. I mean, like in this, we're gonna get there, but I'm like, you cannot give me this. Make me shift gears and then like do a whole 180 and then do this to me. Tracy, what are you doing?
It's so funny.
It's just so hard to make.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like once the like the fog is lifted,
the shift happened for
you're like, what are we even doing? Why are we even doing any of this? Like, what is Nick even here? Like, I still like him as a person, but like, what? Tracy, please, I do not want to see what we're about to see, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, I was always like, I like the same thing. Like, Nick is cute. I don't dislike him. I think that Cell was just always like, the moment he came on the scene brooding, and then she was like checking for him and smelling him and could feel his eyes on her. I was always like,
it always did it for
me. That's where we're ending up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it. So like the Nick thing, I was always like, this is gonna be awkward when it ends. And so like the next scene, I was like, poor Nick, he has no clue what's gonna happen.
Or does he? Because if we want to move this along.
Yes. Okay. So
they're having this moment.
He's like, you're remarkable, but I'm not the only one that thinks so. And then he glances at the stage, shifts Bree's attention to the stage, and we see Nick, Pete, and William, the Legendborn that are about to choose their scions, standing in a line just off the side of the stage, and Nick's eyes are glued to them, to Cell's body draped around Bree, and the anger on his face burns bright as a firework. And Cell says, oh, the scene he could make if he could. And Bree, if he has to be in your line of sight for you to remember him and his feelings, then you are not
every time.
This is not your man.
Every time. She is so guilty of this. Every time she interacts with Cell, it's just the like, oh, Nick exists. She has to be reminded that Nick. She's like, oh, Nick. Crap, Nick.
I love
Nick.
That guy.
Oh,
no, yeah. Him who I love.
Them.
Him who's my man.
But also it's funny because I love, this is like, it's clearly a love triangle rather than hinge kind of thing, because the way that Cell goes about this is like, I'm not the only one who finds you like captivating or whatever, and he like shows her off with him draped over her, rather than him like being like, is that your man? Like, he's a lame. You see him on that stage, like, you know what I mean? He's like, it's just very much like he wants to be part of this, but he can't have it, and it's hilarious.
And like Bree says, like, do you enjoy making him jealous? Are you doing this just to make him jealous? She says, are you doing this just to make him jealous?
And I love that.
And he's like, no, but that doesn't mean that that's not a great side effect.
I also like that she asked that, because like, the way I read it, it doesn't necessarily. I twist to glare up at him. Are you doing this just to make him jealous? Like, she is going to be upset, hurt if that is the case, because
she was real hurt whenever she thought that when she's already hurt about Cell possibly not liking her whenever he said that she was a dummy. She was very hurt by that. So anytime Cell looks like he may not find her attractive,
is
she's
this
like,
fake? Hello? Are you just messing with me?
Is this not reciprocal? Because
am I feeling all of these feelings alone?
I also
am I out here on the edge about to blow up something solid with Nick? And I'm by myself.
I also like that specifically from Nick's point of view. I want to highlight, because I don't think I picked up on this at the time, because I was in chaos when I first read this. But reading it now, I'm like, oh, Nick is mad not just because Cell is doing this and is being very performative, but actually what he just saw. If you read it back, they just had this genuine moment where things overcame them, and he saw that it must have been very visible. Oh, he's just messing with her, to oh wait, no, something's going on over there. And I'm so sorry to hear it, Nick. Oop.
But also, if you think about it, Nick did not have a very long time on the dance floor with Bree. As soon as he and Bree did one twirl within the dance, Isaac was right there breaking that up, because the white supremacists were we do not like our king dancing with this Nubian queen. We don't want it. But so Nick did not have very much time with Bree on the dance floor. Here's Cell draping his body around her, twirling her around, making her laugh openly.
He
has not had the opportunity.
I'm also thinking about this too, is he's stepping out on the stage thinking that he's gonna either see Bree sitting down or still
staring up at him,
waiting, looking for him, or still being cornered and uncomfortable by Isaac, right? So he's gonna try to give Isaac his biggest, to find out that she's been rescued. I mean, he doesn't really know exactly what happened.
And whisked
away.
Whisked off.
Isaac is no longer in the picture, so he can't even enjoy the
But neither is he.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to sit with that. He's got to sit with
it. He can't even enjoy the relief of she's not in danger of Isaac, or she's not having being cornered by Isaac, or she's not in
different danger of Cell.
She in danger.
You're in danger, girl.
But not the kind you
want. Me too.
So
they stopped dancing. Because
they stopped dancing. But I do love that Cell does say no, I'm not just doing this to make Nick jealous, but that doesn't mean it's not a pleasant side effect. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. And then here come Daddy Davis.
So here we go into the clownery.
With just another, we're not going to go through it. It's just, Daddy Davis has now given us a few speeches. You know what the speeches are. Clownery, pretentiousness, ridiculousness.
Listening to his own voice.
Loving the sound of his own voice.
And finding joy. Yes. Loving it.
He asked everyone to join in their sacred pledge. Honestly, ever since, I can still vividly I hear Bayana's voice in my head when I get to these patches where she's it's a cult. Because I was thinking about this as a secret society. I was thinking about this as an order. But when she unlocked that, it's a cult, and my brain finally coalesced around this is a cult. It just solidified for me. This pledge, when the shadows rise, so will the light. When the blood is shed, blood will call. By the king's table for the order's might. By our eternal oaths, the line is law. I am I need y'all to break free.
Yeah, because at this point, I love to learn about cults, but at this point, Camlin's never happened. It sounds on paper when you realize read their history. At this point, the reality these people are living in, that's just a cult. I don't know. It's doing a lot, especially when you're talking about more distant members of this quote unquote order. Y'all aren't even that directly involved. Y'all aren't, part of the table or anything. So y'all are just hearing about a lot of this. Why are y'all here?
Yeah, just adults trying to, make themselves feel important. But it also reminds me a lot of what Patricia was saying to Bree about how, like, a lot of this is their own doing. Like, when the shadows rise, the shadows are rising because Daddy Davis over here opening gates. And, like, so will the light. Like, you have proclaimed yourself to be the good guys, but, like, you're not the good guys. Like, if you would just let people live in peace, you wouldn't have to fight all these demons. If you would not bind this ether to yourself, you would not, you know what I mean? So it's just, like, it's one of those things that's, like, crazy to me. So they have the Legendborn come out, and then Bree's like, the 5 remaining pages stand in a line facing the stage, and the 3 scions, Sydney, Greer, Blake, Vaughn, and Whitty. And Bree says, a week ago, I would have been there too. So she's not in line with the other pages because she's decided that this is her goodbye, right? William chooses Whitty for his squire. Peter chooses Greer. Greer accepts, and some people start to sneer because remember, Greer is non-binary and different. And so we see a little bit of like, oh my goodness. And it says, what does it say? The crowd shifts. I track the wary eyes, the hesitation, and the curiosity of some of the lieges in the room. And some outright sneers. People who don't want to be inconvenienced, don't want to adapt. People who don't want to get better or learn more, just like Greer said. Right? And I love that, like, this is the order that we go in. Because y'all thought Greer was bad.
Yep. At least Greer is white.
Nick comes up.
At least Greer is white.
Nick comes up and is like, I, Nicholas Martin Davis, son of King Arthur Pendragon, first rank, select Paige Matthews as my squire. With her agreement, we will be bonded for this war and beyond. And Nick is just like feeling it. Like,
he thinks he really just did something.
Yeah, he is like, we are changing the world. Bonnie and Clyde, 2020.
He's like, Bree, look, I told you I was doing diversity.
I was about to say, do you want to look at
giving? Making you life better. And I'm making the order like, better.
Giving white liberal of like, yeah, we can change the world through the systems that already exist. Come along, everyone. People of color, queer people.
Don't you see it? Don't you see it?
We've solved it. We've solved first class we've had all we've solved misogyny. Time. We've solved misogynoir. We did it.
We did it, everyone.
We did
it. With the power of love, just like Disney.
Good job. With the power of love.
It only takes one, and I am he, because I am now the scion of Arthur.
Disney movies got Bree to the gala, and Disney movies got Nick up here proclaiming Bree and thinking that everyone is going to just,
let me tell you,
cheer.
That's exactly what I said in my notes when I was doing chapter 46. I said, we went from, it's a scene directly from a PG teen fantasy movie, brought to you in your home in a book, because it honestly kind of gives like a little bit of Heath Ledger and 10 Things I Hate About You, like singing in front of the crowd and being like pointing out the girl in the crowd. Like, it gives that.
Well, wait. This goes exactly like you think it's gonna go. I just wanted to say that. Like, I remember reading this and like turning the page, and then the first line is the room erupts. I'm like, yeah, because of course it does, Nick.
Wait, we're now in 40.
Wizard Team is back for a new season, and with that comes a few changes. The one we're most excited about, other than reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, is that the Patreon chat is back. Support our work by becoming a B&C baddie at any tier, and you'll be able to watch us record live weekly, have your thoughts included on the podcast, and interact with other baddies. Go to patreon.com/blacknerdscreate to join.
So Bree, in her head, is like, let me think this through. I'm going to be thoughtful about this. I'm going to be considerate. And then she decides, I'm I'm going to accept because my mama told me to take risk and to be brave. And this is exactly what she would mean.
Take
to be
risk,
part of the order that she told me not to care,
follow
to
your
not to get
heart
involved with in the first place.
Forward. And
it's
that's
very
what Bree
much
said.
And to Bree, that is
it's
including
very much
the order.
teenage logic, but specifically teenage logic from like a teenage movie. Like it's
But also, like, it is, and it's like, to be fair, when you're a teenager and you want things to go the way you want them to go, you will make the rule. And if you're near any age, you will make the rules sound like whatever the rules need to sound like for you to have interpreted them in that way. And so, to an extent, perhaps Nick was correct, and Bree did actually want to be part of this. Sadly, I don't know, but that's what she gives, and she answers back to him loudly and clearly. I accept Bayana Davis's offer, and then as soon as the words leave her mouth, the crowd explodes again. And unlike the charming PG teen movie interactions we've been having, where her stepping into the ball and being the prettiest girl at the party, as Bubbles would say from Powerpuff Girls, she is instead given the entirety of the racisms that we've been noting for her every step of her day, every day she's been on the campus for UNC Chapel Hill. She gets it all wrapped up in a pretty 5-second bow. Because all the worst racism comes out. Like, just the worst. All of them come out.
It turns into the Arkansas is integrating the schools, like, right away.
Little Rock?
Right away. Like, I could see the order of the rose as the 50s mamas holding up signs and saying, "Not my child, never again." And like, Bree becomes little tiny Ruby Bridges, just trying to do her, like, just trying to go to
Ruby
school.
Bridges,
like,
please.
immediately, like,
just
immediately. Vaughn's mother is excessive because, girl, you knew your son was not going to get chosen because you know he showed out, and you know they were gonna look for that boy. You knew he wasn't gonna make it. Now she's and so for her being rattled, for her being already in her druthers, she's the first one to say something crazy. She calls Bree nappy headed, and that's just,
she was gonna say something else, but we did not get to see it. But
she was gonna say something else.
That's what we get. And
she said,
it's like,
you stole this from my son. Which...
Oh no. Like no, because my thing is, you went all the way to nappy headed. You know what nappy headed means.
Oh, she was gonna say you nappy headed little, and then someone pushed her from her back.
She
can't. Right.
What was you gonna
say?
Right.
Her back.
So she's getting insults left and right. Gold digger, once born sheet, charity case. Which, girl, you're the charity case because you're not even on the stage. So how you're in this room? Come on. Her blood is dirty. She'll taint the line. That is what sets Bree all the way off, and she's ready to go haul off and knock them out. And who performs "You've Been Touched by an Angel Girl" for that person? That's Selwyn. Selwyn is like, I gotta get her out this crowd immediately. And is he doing it because he's caring about what the racists go through and like whether Bree punches him in the face? No, he's concerned because they're a mob and he can't let Bree get got. And but Nick did not think about this as he proudly DEI himself on the stage.
I was so mad.
Selwyn who is able to get her out. Nick did not try to tell Bree with his eyes to move closer to the stage.
I was so mad.
He didn't try to signal to someone in the crowd. He didn't try to signal to Sel to bring Bree further.
When I remember, so we go from the previous chapter that we went on for far too long talking about Selwyn. Selwyn reacts immediately when Nick does this. He hisses a sharp intake of breath, and then he's immediately into action protecting her. Because I'm sitting here like, Nick, you know how racist these people are. You well, no,
but he does it because because what he said to her was like, if you ever have a problem, you let me know. Because clearly he wasn't going to be able to know whenever a problem was happening. Because why would he be able to understand a problem was happening? Although there have been moments where I think Tor has said something or whatever, and he's been like, look side-eyeing. He's good for a side-eye. But, like, when, sir, are you going to realize that the reasons why people are acting so hateful to you and Bree being together ain't got nothing to do with just the fact that she's not freaking from
Legendborn? Yeah.
No, it's just so selfish, and like you straight up put her in danger. Like it, like not just the
he
trauma,
really did.
not just the
He
trauma
set her
of having
up.
to go through that. Like she literally could have been harmed had Cell not done what you didn't like and danced
Been right there.
Like she would have been harmed.
Yeah.
And that's why Nick is also not a good partner to Cell, because he just like expects Cell to like do stuff, like to just you're the protector, you're gonna protect, you're gonna take care of things. Like I shouldn't have to be worried about that. You're supposed to be my protector, and whoever I also think should use protection, you should take care of them too. I shouldn't have to worry about any of it. My father, the inventor of toaster strudel, he does not actually. That's Nick.
Gretchen Wieners.
That is Nick. Who is Gretchen Wieners?
I don't think my father, the inventor of toaster strudel, would be very happy about this.
I don't like my father, the inventor of toaster strudel, will definitely evict you from being May or Merlin, because he can say that you're crazy. And as I'm mad at you, I will also say I think you're crazy. So you can.
I feel like this is like one of those things where we like we were saying, like Nick is very much like in the clouds. I'm in love. Everything is beautiful. Everything is grand. And we're all on this. Everyone is on the same page. Like this is literally a boy who has never been told no to his face without like a lot of excuses or caging it.
But he's also supposed to be aware of what's wrong with the order, but he can't see
right. He's aware of what's wrong with the order, but thinks that it's just like my dad can fix it. Once I become king, I'll say, "Hey guys, let's be nice.
He's Simba.
Let's be nice to the Negroes." And then everyone's like, "Cool, gotcha. Yes, you were correct, my liege."
We'll do that immediately.
Immediately, we will just break down the centuries of systemic discrimination and racism and just be cool.
That we all benefit from, because that's the main reason we put it in.
Yes,
just to make sure that we got benefits out of it, and everyone else had to sit below it.
It's a hot mess.
But sure.
So then we see Cell like doing the thing. He's getting her away from people. Like literally, he's like cursing them out, and then she's like, "Where are you taking me?" And he's like, "Away from the aforementioned assholes." And then this is what I'm talking about. After that, she's like, F them. I want to see Nick. And instead of being like, "That's dumb," which it is, girl, it is. It's dumb. You should be mad.
Why do you need to see? Why do you want to see Nick after he set you up?
It's very silly.
That is
silly behavior.
For me, I'm like, if she's not going to cuss this man out, then why is she can this happen? And I don't understand why. I understand that Cell is consent. He's going where she's saying she wants to go. He's following through with her consent. But at the same time, no. But he doesn't even question it.
That's the thing. He's not even like, "This is dumb, girl." He's like, "I understand you love him. I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna do what you wish." So,
but she's also ridiculous right now, because she's saying that adrenaline roars through her veins along with giddiness and pride. Girl, you were just racism. It's
giving, like, I hate to say it, upon reread, this was not my first read that I felt like this, but it's giving a little bit, and I don't know that Tracy intended this. It's just like, I hate to say it, I really do, but it's giving a little bit of pick me, like, "Oh, I was chosen."
It's giving a little bit of happy token. Mm-hmm. It's giving a little bit like, oh, like, yes, pick me, like he picked me, and like I like everyone's mad, haha, say mad haters, haha, they just mad they don't have what we have. But also it's giving like the getting some pride is like, yeah, we got away with it. What you gonna racist gonna do now? Yeah. I'm the black girl, I'm the black representation, and y'all can't take it. And it's like, okay,
it's
but
only one of you, and you
you
still in danger, girl, as we will see.
And but at the same time, it's like you're giddy and prideful of the fact that you had a room full of already racist, like being racist. Mm-hmm. Like that's not hard to do. It's not that hard to rile up some racists. So what is so happy about that. And I get that it's like that she was chosen, but at the same time, it's like, why did you accept? The acceptance.
It's also
really
like the
still boggles
teenage
my
love
mind.
part too, right? Like getting swept away in it, which is very like a lot of times I have to like not really check myself, but I have to remind myself when I'm in like what do you call it? Like in a YA where they are teenagers, like these are teenagers. This technically does make sense for a teenager. I find it silly and dumb, but this is technically accurate to a teenager's experience. So, however, what is not.
But it's also kind of
Sure.
alarming that, like, my thing is it's alarming that you're excited by a room of racists trying to grab your body and who knows what to you, and the thing you want to do is talk to the guy who set you up.
Though,
to be in that
given
position.
her grief and depression, she has been tracing adrenaline. That is what we saw when we opened. So I guess it's consistent. Still concerning, but it is consistent. So she does. They go back. Cell brings Nick, and this is where I really get mad. Like, I seriously am just like upset. Is because you're like, okay, Nick just put her through all this stuff. Like, shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have assumed. Didn't even ask her what she wanted, and she just went through all of this. Does he say sorry? Is he like, oh my gosh, Bree, are you okay? Selwyn, thank you so much for keeping her safe. I should have thought more about it. Does any of that happen? Is Bree like, hey?
No, stop. Wait, you're going too far. Back up. Stop. I want to get into the threesome of it.
For sure. That's what I'm saying. Instead, they stare at each other. Like, yeah.
But like, because like Cell takes her to this dark room. The light, she doesn't turn on the lights. No one's turned on the lights. It's just a dark, small room. And no one can see what's happening. And then from the light of the hallway, all she notices is like Cell and Nick appear together in her doorway once Cell returns with Nick in tow. And for a moment, she's like, the three of us stare at one another in a wordless comprehension. I look between the two of them, a fallen angel and a king. The dark and the light, and feel a deep churning thrill at what I've done, what we've done. And that's how it'll be now. Oaths between us, bound to each other forever. And it's like, she wants the threesome. She wants a poly relationship. She wants them all oath
because while she's trying to run from her feelings from Cell, they're actually there. And she's like, this is the solution. All of us bound together, bound up together, if you know what I mean.
But my thing is like, she had her moment. She keeps having her moments with Cell. She keeps having her moments with Nick. And what she really wants is both of them. She doesn't want to have to choose. She wants to be able to have all of them together. And I think the oath bounding and all of that, part of it, like she knows she's going to be oath bound to Nick because he's chosen her. But also is like her reflecting on, like, I feel like what it's showing is that she had, like, she's talking about Cell possibly trying to make Nick jealous. But I feel like part of her has been jealous of Nick and Cell's connection this whole time. Like, she's like, I want in on this bond. I'm finally going to be able to get on it. Ha ha ha, gleeful. I'm finally going to be
I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
like wanting that connection and that deeper, especially like given where she's at when we open the story, like she's lacking those connections. Like seeing that I think would be very appealing to her. And so she finally feels like she's in. What's hilarious though is the fallen angel and king is funny because like he not the king, but like he ain't the king, girly, but it's fine. We'll you don't know that yet, so it's fair. I remember when I read this though, I was like, ooh, it hit. Knowing what I know now, I'm like, well, I mean, half right. There's a king in the room.
I've been smirking every time they talk about like Nick being Arthur or like the kingship or whatever. I'm always just like smirking at the side, like, cannot wait. I cannot wait for this reveal. Because it just
does. It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, the king is in the room, so she's almost there. She's almost there.
But yes, go back into Nick.
Yeah, there's no apology. Much there's like no checking on her. There's no nothing. Like he just immediately, like, okay, they have that moment. They stare at each other.
Because he's done nothing wrong. He's done the best thing in the world.
The racism she just like is probably processing and faced.
he had to be evacuated from the stage because whenever she looked up, the stage was empty. So they had pre-evacuated everyone on the stage. Again, if he had had any forethought, she would have been safe already because
he doesn't even know what's happened to her. Like, Cell has to take care of everything. And so what does he do? He like spins her around like, yay, we're all very happy, right? Which she is, because
he laughs.
He laughs. Like,
he laughs.
Like, yes, she's
grinning
happy
ear to ear
because she's silly, but at least he shouldn't assume that she is, you know? Because this is still a silly reaction from her, to be honest. It shouldn't be expected. And like, Cell is still there also. Let's just note he's just standing there. And so like he spins her around and like they're just grinning at each other like fools. And like by the time she glances over, like Cell is gone. He's left, which
listen,
like,
because Cell has already said,
he probably
left a couple of chapters ago, like, I can't believe I wasted all my time and you were silly. You are a silly girl. And then he is watching these two spin around like Disney movie princess.
Had Bree been rightfully upset about what had just happened, it would have been really interesting to see Nick and Cell's reaction to Bree being rightfully upset.
And I think there's a way to write it. I don't know. I need to do a whole proper reread to see if I'm actually upset about this as a writing choice or if it's just like her characterization, which are two different things. Because I'm like, I think there's a way for her to have been thrilled, but also be like, yo, Nick, that wasn't cool. Yeah, like this was disturbing for me to experience because any Black person in the situation would be disturbed that they just experienced this.
Like, it would not have, like, calm would not have been the like I don't, this is not calmness, like she said she had a burst of adrenaline, but like,
yeah. And so I would have really liked to see that dichotomy of like Cell getting it, being like, girl, this is not it, and Nick having to be like, oh shoot, you're right, my bad. But they don't do that.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, he like comes in the room and he laughs and is like spinning her around like it's the Disney movie that she talked about, like with no acknowledgement of what just happened. And I think for me, like, partially Cell leaves the room because he's like, I don't want to see this girl that I'm catching feelings for gallivanting with this dumb boy, but also because he goes back to them being like, these two are stupid.
I agree.
These two are stupid. They act like this is all fine and dandy. Why are you laughing? Ain't shit funny. You know, like, we should be like in this room figuring out what to do next, figuring out like if
we should be having a war chest.
Yeah,
we should have a meeting. Yes.
Are you actually okay from what you just experienced? How is this going to work if like the entirety of like the order, the regent, everyone is against it? And Nick is like, his first thing is like, where did it say Nick appears? They rotate. The kiss is nothing like our first one. They're kissing, first off. What's the first thing?
It's their most sexual kiss yet.
Yeah, the first thing he says after he is like kissing the crap out of her and pressing his kiss, overtaking all her senses or whatever, he looks up, kiss swollen lips, pulls him in, and trails kisses along her jaw, saying, "You and me, B, we can make things better, make it good together." Like, no, bitch. Like, maybe.
This is is so.
But that's not the first things that you say. No.
We have a lot to talk about. If this is like, this is not.
Yeah.
The tonal shift from the virulent racism that we start, like, this chapter is only like 2 pages long, 4 pages long, and like, it's like 2 of the 4 pages are the racism and Nick announcing, and then it goes directly into them like laughing it up like they just pulled off the paper,
that's exactly what it's like, and like that type of relationship that like is because it is the, like Porshèa highlighted, it's like the most like sexual kiss that they've had, and like it's like this high of like, ooh, we just got away with it, and I just really. It was so
like
icky to me even reading it the first time that like, I mean, not icky. That's that okay. I'm in hindsight, it feels more so. But I do remember being put off when I first read it because, like, first you give me Sel. I've made the shift. This happened last chapter. Then you have Nick putting her in a dangerous, like, straight up dangerous situation, and he's not going to talk about it. Y'all aren't going to talk about it. Both of you silly billies are going to just make out about it. Hello, and I don't even care anymore that y'all are making out because I made the shift. If you'll recall, so that's what I mean when I'm like, Tracy, come answer for these crimes because they're in, like, I have to imagine, and, like, you know, this could be projection, but like Robyn is saying, that Sel sees them in this moment how I see them, of like, y'all are both lost in this fantasy that doesn't exist. But especially for Bree, like, Nick can get caught up in it, but Bree, I thought you understood that this fantasy isn't for you, but you're still trying to play along, and I can't stop you, so I'm gonna leave.
And you just had a direct example. This is not for, like, none of this is for you. Like, you are not safe here. This
but
is
it's not
not
my
a
place
good
to stop
place.
you, so I gotta walk away, which I hate that for him, and also for me because I have to sit through it.
Yeah.
I can't just walk away.
Yeah.
And then they don't even get to they don't get to live up this moment very long. Like, again, how does Nick not see how much this is like, it is all wrapped in racism. Like, they don't want you to be along with this girl. And there's a rap on the door that jars them both, and they ask after Nick, and his head jerks up and says, "One moment." She stifles a giggle while he pecks her in the mouth before sliding her to the floor. And then when he opens the door, it's an attendant who instructed us to take our seats for the dinner. He flushes red, like racist redneck red. I can only imagine what we look like. His arm is draped low around my waist. My hair must be massive and wild. Can I help you? Nick says with a barely suppressed smile. Yeah, he pinches my hip and I yell.
Like, I didn't actually pick up on that. Like, but yeah, no, that's that makes me, Nick.
She's giving like
yeah,
like she's giving that.
Yeah.
She's giving like utter sheer delight at pissing off like this, like it doesn't. Yeah. It's just so bad. It's very much like destructive Bonnie and Clyde. Like, we do things.
But this specific thing, I didn't pick up on the first time that I read it. It's not until you pointed it out that, like, I'm like, oh, the pinching her hip and making, like, it's like it's performing, like, it's definitely giving white liberal or like brand new anti-racist who's like thrives on making other right,
or not even fully, just like a rebel against
thrives
their
on making
machine.
other races
like, my family doesn't
mad
like,
at the expense of the black people around you. Like, this is all at Brianna's expense, whether she realizes it or not. Like,
or not. And everyone in the room is thinking she's just a toy of rebellion. They're just like, oh, here he's just trying to have his fun. He's just trying to rebel against us all. Like, this is just his little fun games. Like, it's a short-lived experience. Like, but now he's trying to make her a squire. He's trying to make her part of the system, and that is not short-lived. And how dare he? And he's living it up. This is all fun and games for him.
It's very interracial couple influencer, where the content is them being interracial. You know what I mean? Where you're like, do y'all actually like each other, or are you just here to make swirl jokes?
Race is bad. Yeah.
But
I'm just trying to make racist mad.
It is very interesting for me because, like, the attendant who helped them to their seats, like, remember when Bree walks into the gala, every single person of color that is not her is working there.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing this attendant as like a black man who is like.
But they have the special ones, the ones that talk, are the ones who are white. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they staff things. They'll staff the people who don't have like any, like, they're not supposed to speak to you. They'll staff them black. But if they're like a master of ceremony or something like that, then they'll staff that as a white person.
I thought this attendant was a person of color. I definitely thought I was just like, white. Oh, okay. Okay, so then that doesn't apply, but it's still just very much like, you're not even. This isn't even for, like, it's not like Daddy Davis knocked on the door or an Order of the Rose. It's like, this person is just like trying to just do their job. And I get being like caught up in the moment and kind of like losing yourself in the like, oh my God, we did it type of thing. I think my problem with this scene is also with Bree kind of forgetting what just happened to her.
She literally went from Cell saying that they need to get away from the a-holes and into F them, I need to see Nick.
Girl, what?
Like,
you've been like pressed about the racism up till now, and it has not been as blatant, which rightfully so. But like, so you're telling me now we're fine. Now this is fine.
This is the worst racism she's faced since she was in a cop car in the first like couple of chapters. Like that was like, it was like, because it was like imminent threat. This is the imminent threat. They were trying to pull you. They had hands on your body.
And it's not,
and you're ready to laugh it off.
It's not even. I don't think that she's
like. I want to give like I give grace to the fact that she's a teenager, and like it's like again I would need to reread the whole thing because I just am like, is it teenagerness that's bothering me and it's well written, or is this just a spot where I wish Tracy would have just given a little bit more nuance? Like, I don't need her to not have the adrenaline. I need her to acknowledge in some way or form.
Like, why isn't the adrenaline pumping?
Yeah,
like, I want to fight.
Acknowledge in some way or form.
Yeah,
like, why is it she was not just in that Nick just put her in?
Right.
And I think
because she just said, like, she said that her mom's like her reason that she wants to move forward is because her mom like it was like she should be fighter. She's have a choice. She's a fight or flight, so she's choosing fight. But like, you're not fighting them when they are trying to fight you. So is it really fight?
And I just need her to be like, and so before Nick gets in there, she's like, I don't need to see, I need to feel fresh panic is still bouncing around my chest and against my ribs, but there's anticipation too. And I need there to be like, Nick moves, he spins me around and then he's kissing me and my brain decides to ignore everything else. Or I need there to just be something that she acknowledges
that she's choosing to.
When they leave this room, they still have to deal with what they just passed, but she's deciding to focus on what's happening in the now. I need there to be some sort of like.
I still don't understand why she's. I would be so pissed. Yeah, I would not be. I would not be happy. I would not have it in me to be like glad that she. I mean, again, she did, like you said, she did accept. She did accept, and like this is, and that's the giddiness. Perhaps maybe she's like, I know this is about to make them all yell. I'm about
and
to
also
make
just
the girls
knowing she's
angry.
going to be bonded to Nick.
I'm doing
but I think what really gets me, I think, as we're talking about it, I'm like, here, all the stuff we said, but also you kind of said it, Robyn, I think kind of on accident, like, oh, we did this. Like, Nick thinks he's done it. Like, it's done. Rather than this is just step one of several steps that will need to happen to do anything. This is an ongoing thing.
Like,
you accomplish anything. And they both seem to think they did.
And like also it's like you have removed yourself from the situation. The situation is still happening. Like there's still a ballroom full of pissed off racist people screaming. And mad. So like I feel like if there would have just been like I've decided to enjoy this moment with me and Nick and we'll deal with the fallout when we deal with it, or if Nick said, it's you and me, be like, we can make things better, make it good together. We'll stick together. Like, it's the celebratory tone, like you said, Delia, when you didn't accomplish anything, you didn't win anything. Like, what are you celebrating?
And if you want,
what are you celebrating?
If you want Bree to still, like, I'm thinking like, just thinking as a writer, like, you still want Bree to be this silly girl. She's a teenager, like all the stuff we're saying. I think you can still have that reason written in, like maybe have Cell just say under his breath, like, he shouldn't have done that. And then Bree's like, what? And he's like, nothing, never mind. I'll go get him. Like, cause he can't really speak up, but like, I think there's a way for us as the audience to realize like somebody here is like, this was not okay. And acknowledging it narratively without like interfering with their characterizations if that was the concern. But yeah, it stands out. It for sure stands out.
So the incident is like, your father needs you. He steps back. His eyes are everywhere, but looking at them immediately. And Nick leans into Bree and says, 5 minutes and it's you and me. It's me and you now. And I'll have Cell oath us as soon as Arthur calls. The words have her heart racing all over again. With the warrior's oath, she'll be Legendborn. More than that, her and Nick will belong to each other. That feeling between us is what has always been there, and now it'll be official. He passes a thumb over her cheek again, and Bree knows that he's thinking the same thing. And so this is what I give like I can read your mind Avant moment. I just found the light switch and start looking for my shoes when there's another knock. Back already? I rush across the carpet on bare feet and open the door. That was Isaac pushes into the room, glowing red eyes bearing down on Bree in a grip that she can't shake. They burn and expand, taking her over until all she can see are his black irises, the rings of crimson. She tries to scream, but her nose is already filled with the smoke of hot bile, and her mouth is burning. It's too late. Blackness overtakes her.
Who would have known?
This is the other part about this whole scene that, like, is very annoying, is that, like, he's like 5 minutes.
The fact that he leaves her alone after all that.
No, it's not going to be 5. Yeah, the fact that, like, you didn't say, like, let me make sure that Cell comes in, or let me find Cell before I leave to go, or to send the attendant to go get Cell.
You just saw her in danger and you left her alone.
Any Legendborn that, like, you know is on her side. Fuck, like, get Felicity, get Sar, you know what I mean? Like, anyone, just don't, like, a complete, just, like, disregarding of what just
of the actual danger.
Yeah, and like
the
fact that it wasn't like
that she specifically is in.
And I think too, it's like we saw how they reacted to Greer, and it wasn't great, but like just juxtaposing those like negative reactions is like, no, this isn't like a people are uncomfortable but they'll get over it thing. Like they were actually, like you said, Porshèa, they were grabbing at her. There was like physical danger.
Again, because if Greer, I don't know that Greer would have been that much more safer in the there's a difference because of race. However, it would have been interesting had Greer been in the crowd and seen the reaction to Greer going up after
Nick was in the crowd. They all three of them were standing there.
Greer and them were at the stage. They were over there on the stage. And he did not have the assurance that Bree was in a safe space for him to start ask her that. He did not make sure at the minimum that she did not have, he did not think racism was a big enough deal within the order to be scared for Bree's ability to be in it. He knows it's going to piss people off, but he's like, they're not so racist that they're going to try to like call you out of your name and grab your body while you're out there in the crowd.
Who even knows what had Cell not been there?
Who knows what?
Because it's not like Nick made sure he was there. So then to turn around and leave her by herself, not to make sure Cell is there, it's just like, again, a lot of it can be put off to like teenagers. They ain't the brightest all the time, but like the disregard from like step by Nick is just
like it's like my biggest thing here is that we just saw it in action. It'd be one thing if it was like, oh, like that cop was racist to you when you first came on campus, and I'm gonna make sure that cop isn't around you. Oh, Vaughn, he can't sit with us. I'm making sure he can't sit with us whenever we're at this gala. You are in the gala, moments away, like less than 5 minutes removed from having to get removed from a freaking racist mob inside of the building you are currently in, and you're gonna leave her alone in a room?
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, okay, so Bree wasn't with the other pages, and so maybe they didn't see the full extent, but they saw the eruption. It says like the room erupts. They have to take the scions off the stage. Cell has to go get him. I doubt in the like 5 minutes in which Cell is like, come with me, Bree wants to see you, that he's not like those motherfucking assholes.
Yeah.
Cell is volatile. So Cell is like bad.
I'm sure Cell was giving it to Nick on top of that. So Nick knows at least Cell
like
is
how
upset.
dare you put her in that position. So it's not like, I don't know, it's the rose-colored glasses is like a teenager thing, and like, you know, they can get swept up in the like,
but it's an
you and me,
thing
whatever. But it's like the minute the door knocks, I would have liked to at least see like Nick's shoulders stiffen or his like, you know, like
yeah,
there's some sort of like
they brace themselves.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit like, are you gonna be all right? And Bree's like, yes, go, or something like where like it takes her agency into account, but also like but instead, not only does he not do that, it's the opposite. He's like showboating, like, what are y'all gonna do about it? And it's like, they're gonna do racist stuff about it. What are you talking about? You're leaving her alone.
What do you mean?
He is such an
This is the
and I think this is
group of
when I
people
saw
that
was in, like,
your
I
memory from
don't
your
F
mother.
with Nick.
This is the same group.
Yeah. I feel like this is when I solidly was like, I do not F with this boy. Like, I was trying to give him benefit of the doubt when he said, if you go through something, let me know. Because he's like, I know how to use my power. Because there are people who will play in your face and be like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. When they can do anything they want to do about it, they just don't feel it. They don't want to have to like actually explain or make people be better people. They just don't want to do it. And Nick is willing to do something about it. So that's a cute little sign. That's a good, like, okay, maybe you'll be useful. Maybe you'll actually try to change things. And then your try to change things is to announce in front of an audience of racists that you want me to break into this cult of racist by being the number one person's top person. That's what you just said to them. And then you did not make sure I was safe when you did this. You just said it, and you just assumed I would be safe because everyone's going to fall in line.
That's
because
not how
you said
racism
it
works, my guy.
That's what you just assumed.
And
yep.
And you knew it was bad enough for her to tell you about it if she ran into it, but you didn't think it was bad enough to have to try to safeguard her when you finally saw she had left the order. You did not know she was gonna come in here today. The first thing you thought you didn't think about for her safety was like when she came in, like, okay, I gotta make sure like she can get through this. Like, you didn't think that. It pisses me off. So I actively just started to dislike Nick.
I didn't actively
like before I was just like, we'll see how it goes. And then I got to here and I was like, nope.
I don't actively dislike him, but I just think like it was from here that I was like,
I see everything now from a lens of like, you don't get it. Like,
but like
I can't.
It's very much like he's very naive, he's very ignorant, and like it could never work out with him and Bree alone. Like I just felt that I was like, his daddy's too racist and he's too unaware. It's too much. They can't be together. So sorry. Oh well.
It can't. Nope.
Speaking of racist daddy.
So I'm gonna yeah. So when she comes to, where does she find herself? Is she like in like has Nick made sure she's whisked away to a safe place, has Cell infiltrated and been like, you know what, I let y'all hang out together long enough, I gotta make sure you're safe, and he whisked her off? No, because that's not how things work in this here order, as we are soon to learn from the villain explaining from, and I've nicknamed him Dud Davis because he's a dud.
Dud Davis, I like it. It does kind of sound like a Southern name, actually. I'm Dud Davis.
Dud Davis. And also, I feel like it's like, it gives me like dad but not dad and lord but not lord together. It's just Dud Davis. He's a dud, okay?
Yes.
He's Dud Davis. She wakes up tied to his chair in his study, and she keeps asking him where Nick is, and he doesn't answer her. Instead, he opts to quiz her about how much she knows about his heritage. And it's hilarious because he doesn't even know about his own heritage because the king is with Bree. It's not with him. He doesn't even know he's a Lancelot. So you're quizzing her about something you don't even know about yourself, sir. And so he decides he's going to give her this history lesson in the way that all racists do when they're explaining something to a black person or a person they just like, or like they feel like they must explain themselves to. Because sometimes it's a white. So he gives her a lesson on, there once was a time back in the original round table when there was someone mistakenly thought they would add a black knight to the order. And mind you, this knight was not like just like an African knight. Like, he was mixed. And because of his mixed heritage, he was deemed unworthy to be on a round table. And that's how elementary this man's thought is like, I'm going to tell her a story where it makes clear that her blackness makes her unworthy for being part of the table. So it's just like a very clear metaphor. No deep thought at all necessary for your understanding. We didn't allow mixed race knight into the order back in Arthur's day, and certainly not will not on this day. How would not? And it is so like just so wrong in so many ways, but also condescending from a place of utter ignorance. And it's just fascinating to me in a way of like, I know that a villain, like villains come in all shapes and sizes, but whenever a villain is like they think that they've learned a lot or they've accumulated enough information, but all they've really done is like accumulate information to make their points instead of actually being well read and actually being well understood about what's going on around them. It just makes for a really like what?
It's like this very rudimentary understanding of how the world works, but it's because it's rooted in such long history. Like, I find it's so what I loved this chapter when I read it initially, and I still love it because the way Dud Davis is written is just this is what I think Tracy does so masterfully. Like, really captures like real Southern racism. Like, they really think it's like when he's talking about heritage and stuff, yes, he's talking about the round table and stuff, but I'm like, that is exactly how they talk about it. This is exactly how Southern racists feel about it. Like when he says, what did you say? Hold on. When he's talking about Nick doesn't see the grand vision of his ascension. What the return of the king means is what it can restore, the opportunity of Camlin that I never had. And it's like what are we restoring, sir? What do you think is going to be restored? Like what type of order, what type of society? But like this is how they talk about it. So they like the Southern heritage line, the Southern racism is all a myth. Like it's based on this myth and story that they believe. So he's telling it because he also believes this very childlike belief in this story, and it does come off across condescending because he's like, oh well, I'm right and I believe it, but like it's also the story they tell to themselves.
Yeah, but it's also like it is. Yeah, I that's one of the reasons I enjoyed the villain being who it is, because this whole time Tracy's made a big point of making sure that we understand that like Dud Davis has like a Southern accent and he's trying to play charming, well read. I can talk about poetry and all this or whatever. I'm like a gentle, like he's like more of a like a scholar than he is like a whatever like his interest in the heritage is much scholarly as it is like a pride that he has for it. And I just feel like he irks me in several ways that like Southern white men who are clearly racist do. But he also is just like, he's so supremely contented with the idea that he knows everything there is to know, that like there's nothing that that like anyone can tell him. No one from like Nick, none of the young ones have anything to give to him. And that's been like my just general beef, like intergenerational beef I've had for everyone. If like, I don't care who you are, you could be the same age or you could be older than I am. If you look at younger people as not being shouldn't have a voice in things because they're younger and that inherently makes them less able to speak to a thing, then I automatically just think you're dumb. Like I also think that you're like just like you can't call yourself like I said, he calls himself a scholar. You can't call yourself a scholar and not being open to learning from non-traditional ways, because you're not really trying to learn. Then you're just trying to have information and you're a collector less than a like learner, and I don't like those people. So that this comes off more and like, so the story it gives I feel like there's specific reference, like maybe it's the color friendship, something that was like something where racism comes up but like in a Disney kind of way, that it like made me remember, like it hit for me. And it's just, maybe it was color friendship. And I just was like, oh no, like like for me it was like I'm so annoyed about how Brianna reacted to the racism, that for her to come into this chapter where she's getting the racism like right in her face, she can't turn away from it, she can't go run off with Nick real quick, like, and her to just be like taking it in and realizing just now that he's being racist to her. I'm like, girl, if you had simply talked this out.
But also, like, didn't need to talk it out. Like, he is so Southern racist colored.
Not with
yeah.
But like in her, like in the room, when she was in a room with Nick and Sel, she simply sat and talked it out with them. I would have, and I guess maybe that's why the chapter exists the way it does. Is she needs to be
humbled in her own way, right? Like,
but this doesn't. It just didn't. I don't know. It just. Oh, I don't know.
To me, it's like it's not. It's a reminder. Like, this is like from me, someone who grew up in like a very white space, and like you will have these people that you trust and these friends that you make who genuinely, I think, genuinely love you, genuinely believe that they're not racist or believe that like they understand the world, right? And then something will happen in which you're like, this is bigger than just like, one, it's bigger than individuals, and two, like, unlearning is not I met a Black girl that I really like, and so now racism done, or like I understand like all of those stereotypes are wrong, right? It's like, no, there's like, you're going to be confronted over and over, time and time again, with like how deeply ingrained this is in every single part of society, of life, of like even yourself. Even if you are trying to unlearn or like to not perpetrate these things, right? And I think like for Nick, that moment could have been a very helpful like moment of like, oh, just because I'm working through all of the bullshit that the Order is doesn't mean that the rest of the Order is working through it. And just because I'm okay with Bree doesn't mean that like my say so is going to just automatically make people fall in line, right? But also for Bree, it should have been a like, oh shit, just because I feel safe with Nick and with Sel and with a handful of people does not mean that I'm safe.
Do you want to know what it's giving?
Like, I remember vividly in school, someone who was like my best friend, I finally got my mom to be like, oh yeah, you can go to their house without like, you can go and hang out, go after school or whatever. Being like, oh, you're my N-word, right? And maybe, what?
Pardon?
Pardon? Like, yeah,
you implied ownership, and I just need you to backtrack.
Right, it's just because like I think I forget what it was, but it was some song that was out or whatever, and it was like, my nigga, like, or whatever, and it's like, no, I'm not. One, like at the time too, was like, I can't even say nigga without it sounding a little hard ER-ish, like, because I'm from Anaheim. Like my cousins and stuff could probably get away with it a little bit more than I could, right? 13 from Anaheim, like, it's not flowing off the tongue. Two, like, just because we're close or whatever doesn't give you a path into Black culture. And yeah, other Black people say it, guess what? You're not Black. And also, like, yes, we are close, but we're not family. There are still levels to these like relationships, you know what I mean?
I don't. First off, don't you ever feel safe in my presence ever saying that word? And like, second, like, why? If you're comfortable saying it to me, then I know you're saying it behind me, and I'm not with it.
Yep.
You can keep it. Don't you ever? I need you to have not ever been comfortable saying that word in your life, and you're gonna come to me like it's okay. So I know you've been saying it comfortably without me around, and you.
And I don't think that they had. I think that they had gotten to this point where they were like,
because you don't just drop the N word to a Black person and think it's okay without having said it before. You were singing along songs. You were singing along the songs when nobody else was in the car.
Oh, no, they were saying. I believe that they were like singing along with the songs and stuff like that. But I feel like they were like finally like, oh, I finally have
I got the
a
cred.
Black person in my life.
I can sing the song that I've been singing.
I can say it out loud
lyrics.
now. Yeah. I can now, like, instead of just singing it in my room, I can now say it out loud, and I can say, like, look at me and my Black friend. And I was like, I'm gonna get you all the way together, because you say that to someone that's not me, and you get your shit rocked, and you come to me, I'm gonna be like, well, secondly, you say it to me, and I'm gonna tell you about yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna hit you because I just don't have the time, but I will tell you all about yourself, right? And so it was, but I feel like this could have been that moment, because to me, when I remember vividly when that happened, and being like, oh, no, I don't care how close I feel to someone. There is always, like, constant vigilance, basically. Like, there is always going to be this moment in which I'm gonna have to either check this person, and I'm gonna have to do the math of, like, okay, I've invested X amount of time in this relationship. Am I am I going to check this person, right? Because
I think the question
Bree
that
had done the
comes
math
to
and said, like,
mind is,
I'm going to say goodbye. Like, this isn't my thing.
Like, I think that's the thing, like you were saying earlier, like Delia was saying earlier, like the nuance. Like, we could just see the nuance here, because it just, you don't walk into a place thinking for your safety you need to get out, for them to show you for your safety you need to get out, for you to be happy to not want to be getting out. I just don't, the dissonance. And then so when we get here to Dead Davis, man, like, villain-splaining everything to her and the very most racist of ways, and then going into like the capitalist undergirdings of it as well, because not only is like war an opportunity, which Bree asked him, he says all wars are opportunities, and I won't let another one pass me by. Now she gets stuck on the past, but I'm gonna stop for 2 seconds and talk about all wars are opportunities, because all wars are opportunities for the people who manufacture them, who actually make sure that, like, there's something for them to gain out of it. Like, and then like a lot of times people, if you ask about wars, people will say, look at the land, look at who, whatever. But now that we're in more modern times, look at the resource development, look at who's getting paid under the table, look at like what's actually being transactioned, like what's actually occurring with this stuff. And that is very true to this day for Lord Davis, who when Bree pushes about the, like, another one passing me by, she says, you wanted Camlon when you were a scion, you wanted Arthur to call you. And he says, of course I did. You wouldn't understand the frustration of a scion who's never been called, but a scion of Arthur, which he's not, to be that close to that much power and be forced to wait for it to come to you, and you still will be, because it will still not come to you. The impotence was intolerable. But that's not why I'm accelerating Camlon. That I'm doing for my son's future and a future health of the order. In the old days, vassals served us in exchange for protection. Now, CEOs and politicians expect lieges to follow their whims, give them what they want. Vassal infighting pits lines against lines. Once, ladies were respected and honored at court, but then the order of the rose fell to the wayside, and now women sit at the table. Who, the nerve? When Mallory tells us that the very purpose of a knight is to fight on behalf of a lady, and now my son's foolishness in choosing you, who sits at the crux of two faults. Could you not see the sickness here? How the corruption must be rooted out and corrected? And Bree thinks, two faults, my race and my gender. But they are not faults, they are strength. And I am more than this man can comprehend. And I love that she's there with it. But this man, on top of being a racist, is a sexist. He's all the isms. And Bree's catching all the strays from all the isms that he's having. And it's not even strays, these are direct shots to her. She's catching all these shots. She has no one there with her as she's taking these shots, and he has Isaac roaming about. And he calls it a sickness and foolishness, and he's trying to put vassals in their place. But it sounds like the people have expectations. He does not want to meet their expectations. He wants to fly out and do whatever he wants to do because whatever he wants is for the good of the people. And did we not just have this moment where we were just analyzing Nick and him thinking that his decree is what's best for everybody? And that's a similar energy that he's learned from his father.
No, I agree. I was thinking this whole time, like, all of this is giving, which, you know, shout out to Tracy's writing because it reflects real life. The whole Nick and Bree of it all, and like in these particular chapters, is very much giving Prince Harry and Meghan, like, the way she just like blind. I mean, okay, let me not criticize her in real life. She went through a lot, but I mean, she really did just go up into the royal family thinking like, we'll work it out. It'll be fine. And Harry's like, yeah, they're racist, but like, it's we've done it. I chose you. We can make it through. And then she went through hell, like hell. And it took a lot before he was like, okay, fine, this is not working out. I need to like abandon this system all the way. And like, it just makes me wonder because like Dud Davis is being very like this is ingrained in him. So there's no way that Nick did not know. So I'm like, how far would it have had to go? Like, the plot takes care of it, but how far would they have gone before Nick would have finally been like thinking about Bree and protecting Bree? Again, it wouldn't have mattered. The plot happened, and even if the plot didn't happen, eventually they would have realized that he's not the king. But like, hello.
I think one thing, in a way, like, not that I care about the royals, but the one thing I think that, not even on Meghan's side, but like that Meghan had working for and against her, is the like not understanding the difference between racism in the UK and how it shows up, and racism in the US and how it shows up, and colorism in that. Because I think she says, like, she didn't really think of herself because of colorism and stuff. She didn't internalize Blackness.
She doesn't identify as a Black woman.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't identify as a Black woman.
Because she wasn't treated the same as like her mother. You know, like she could see the differences between like maybe like the way her mother was treated and she was treated. She could see the differences between the way that like darker skinned women were treated and she was treated in America. And I think
specifically where she lived in America, because there's
there's nuances all around. But like, and also I think, because I laugh at this whenever I hear British people, but Black British people as well, talking about how they don't do racism. And I'm like, y'all are doing
y'all the original.
You're lying.
Y'all the blueprint.
You're lying real hard.
You the blueprint.
Like, your propaganda works so heavy that it works on you, and you live there.
Yeah. And you think that like, oh yeah, there's like some issues, you know, there's some prejudices,
really
but there's not like systemic race or whatever. And it's just
and this is kind of similar with the Order too. Like when you think of like British society, how they package everything, everything's like proper and stuff. Like if you think of like the whole, like they call like the Irish trying to get their independence from colonial rule, they call that whole time the Troubles. Like, like this is just their branding. And I think similarly,
they called freaking robbing the Irish of sustenance during that time period a famine, but it was like, no, it was state controlled starvation. Like that was and you so like propaganda. You really propaganded yourself into,
and that's kind of what's happening here with the Order is similar. Like you can tell by the way Dud Davis is speaking, like, and that's what I think is so similar to like Southern racism. Like they believe they're morally just because of this story they tell themselves. Like it's packaged in a very, what's the word, like a very like a noble cause. Like I am writing, this is just how society is, and I'm making sure that it's right because chaos ensues, bad things happen if it's not this way. Also it serves,
you're like, I'm just reinforcing what's already here. I'm just keeping things in proper order.
Like he said, he's really trying to reach like Bree's sense because he thinks this makes sense. He's like, and now my son's foolishness in choosing you, who sits at the crux of two faults. Oh, I'm sorry. And now my son's foolishness in choosing you, who sits at the crux of two faults. can you not see the sickness here?
And
like,
also,
he calls it a sickness. Like,
can you not
is saying, can you not see this?
He doesn't think of his own thinking as a sickness.
It's like the sickness is not like literally just her existing.
He thinks he's morally right.
But also he calls out corruption, and it's like, the corruption is the like people pushing back on an old system of like top down reinforcement and making it so that the people have more voice than the person in position of power.
Well, no, that's the corruption. The people, it's like vassals have more power now than the Legendborn.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's calling that a corruption.
The vassals are not the people. It's still
but they're more people than the scions. Is what I'm saying. He's saying the people of the order. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
that is the corruption. No, I am not. No, I'm in his head. He's like, even the vassals. Corruption. So it's just a mess. So Bree, and hearing this man talk, the more she hears him talk, the more and more she's able to see through him. She realizes that the records in his office with the signature at the bottom mean that he knew about the gates. Not only that he knew about the gates, she says to him, "It was you. You opened the gates 25 years ago. You laid out the welcome mat for the Shadowborn, and you invited them right into our world." She expects for him to deny it and call her a liar, but instead, he wags a finger and he says, "Isaac told me he could smell both you and Selwyn here in my study. I imagine you availed yourself of my archives while he pursued his very inconvenient mole theory." And he's right. Like, they did use the mole theory thing as a kind of like subterfuge for why they were there, for her actually figuring out her mom stuff. But like, this is why I'm annoyed by them not having talked about this. Bree is just like, she's more surprised at the fact that this man is not trying to act as if like he wants to cover it up. Like, she's surprised that he's just like not denying it. And she's the injustice she's thinking about is her mother in particular, and how her mother suffered because of his greed, but she doesn't say her mom's name because she doesn't want him to have power over her. And then he hums and admits that it was a failed experiment whenever he tried to create the thread of Camlon. And then he realized that the real way to make it happen is that you have to make the scions themselves more threatened, and then that makes it more likely that a calling would happen, which is why he made sure Nick kept getting caught up in stuff, while he had the snake capture Nick at the trial, why he whenever they had the original oath ceremony, and they talk about it here, he got thrown, he had his back broke by a demon incorrectly. That was all by him realizing that the only way to make Camlon actually happen is to put the scions themselves in direct danger and not just open the gates and let the Shadowborn in. So Bree's finding out that her mom making herself show up on the radar of the Order and putting herself in danger all those years past was all moot because of this one man's like egotistical plan that he even admits was not going to work. And now he's trying to do the same plan over again, but this time for the result that he was looking for the first time. And so Bree just kind of puts it all together. So Bree says it on Cell's side. She's like, so Cell was right. And he's like, oh, I can't take all the credit for Selwyn's paranoia. And it's like, sir, you first off, you kept reminding him that you could get rid of him, so that was gonna, and you knew that was gonna raise up and increase anything and paranoia he had about trying to get things right. And then you are the one who were opening gates and up the coast in every chapter, and Bree was like, you were gonna torture him, and then he shrugs and says the cane boy needs to be leashed. And then Bree is just like, she's like recoiling and like just like flustered and like just like having a whole like Mr. Crab meme moment where she's just like discombobulated. Like, this man is not only being racist to her, he's not only taking all the blame for and like proud of the fact that he opened up all these gates and put all these people in danger, but he's also just like wholly disregarding a human that he raised in his own house's mental safety. And she's just like completely just blown by all of this. And then she adds, like, because she's like, where does he draw the line? Basically, this conversation is like, where does he draw the line? So then she says, you put your own son at risk, and all the lines too. And if Nick falls, and then he says Nick will not fall. I've trained him far too well for that. He's a natural born leader and does not tolerate harm to innocents. He was made for this war. And Bree says, this manufactured war, you mean? And all wars are manufactured.
I mean,
if you think about it. And so that's kind of where Dead Davis goes. He says, the world is a great chain of being and everyone has their place. Even you, even me. The hierarchy that holds the order together has not lost its value because the danger has appeared distant. And once the vassals are reminded of the destruction we prevent, they will all be reminded of their place in things. Their place. And
she's like, you mean Nick, not you? Let's be clear.
Not you.
She thinks that she's getting him, but she's not, because this man is an egotist, and he's like, Nicholas was a hero to his core, and if it's necessary, I'll show him how I've learned to open the gates and how I'll continue to if he doesn't follow my lead. So he's going to threaten Nick into doing what he wants. And he's going to allow Nick to be the figurehead and be called by Arthur. Like, and he don't even know Arthur. That's how you know this man don't even know Arthur, because he's like, and he's going to be called by Arthur, and he'll take up Excalibur, and as a king, he'll do as I say. And it's like, you think Arthur is going to
do what you say?
You think Arthur? Arthur? You thought Arthur?
Nope. We do learn. And it's laughable when you think about it. I mean, say what you will about Arthur.
It is.
Just imagine him having Nick or Dead Davis as a scion. Like, LOL.
He would have ran through those two so fast.
So, and then I just think, like, I think that, like, to an extent, I think that, like, their wants are more, like, way more aligned to Arthur's wants than Bree's are. Yeah. But at the same time, you're not going to tell him what to do.
You are not in charge here.
You're never going to tell that man what to do.
No.
You are not in charge.
Or entity, because he's not, no, whatever. Anyways, so, pure villain, where he says, then the whole of the order and its vassals around the globe will bend to our will. And
this man is Delulu, first off.
He's highly, highly delusional.
But secondly, before we get to what Bree says, I just need us to, like, recognize how, because I mean, in like in like future chapters and stuff, like they talk about how he's so oath bound and stuff like that, and like William says, like, you know, if he truly believes he's doing this for the betterment of the order, it doesn't break any oaths. And it's just like, to me, I hate to go here, but like the ways in which politicians can convince themselves of like that they're
representing the people.
Yeah, that they're doing something that is obviously on its face self-serving, but they're doing it for the greater good, or for like people don't understand, or not smart enough, or not worldly enough to understand.
They don't have the full picture.
Yeah. And so like, and that's how corruption just like seeps through and like really gets to the stage where it's at, because it's like this man is literally trying to appeal to Bree's better judgment, or to Bree's like sense of nobility, while spewing just straight hatred, garbage. And so it's like
it don't make any actual sense. If you feel like you're a rational person, but you're having a hard time for getting people to join the rational thought you've had, that perhaps you're not the rational person you thought you were.
If a part of your plan is, well, if my son wants to play the hero, I can just threaten him to do what I want to do.
You've lost.
My son is noble. My son is a hero at heart. So if he decides that he's going to disagree with how I go about it, I'll just threaten him.
You've lost the script. You've already lost. You're lost.
You've lost. It's crazy. Okay, we can move on. I just Delulu.
Truly.
He's not the only one Delulu in this room.
It's the Delulu with us in the room tonight.
There are multiple Delulus in this room, okay? Because Bree is sitting in this chair. She's not freaking Black Widowing and breaking the chair and flipping it and making
in no position to be saying nothing.
She doesn't have her mage fire or whatever she wants to feel like calling it swirling up around her. So as she's secretly undoing the knots, she ain't got nothing. This girl's just sitting. She's just sitting. She's not actively doing anything but listening.
That's fine. But where we go with it is girl.
But that's what I'm saying. She's talking to him as if, so she says, well, I won't. Defiant teenager again, but you are
it's
not.
It's funny the way it's written. Specifically, it says, well, I won't. I say, clenching my fists against the ropes. Yeah, girl, you're still tied up.
Because why aren't you using your magic? I don't. To be fair,
she doesn't know how.
She tries to use exactly, and that's where you.
Also, she's recovering from Isaac.
How are you gonna walk into a racist freaking gala and not have your guns at the ready? I need to know. I can tap into my guns.
Look, I'm not here to defend the Gryffindor energy of it all, but she was planning on saying goodbye. She lost herself in it, but she was coming to say goodbye. She thought she was not in any danger.
But if you're in a room full of racists, you gotta have something. You gotta have a blade, or you gotta have something. You gotta have something. Something. You didn't grow up in a rural town in freaking North Carolina.
It's the fact that she grew up in North Carolina. North Carolina, it's not like she grew up in. Not that racism's everywhere, but this brand of racism is in the South, and she grew up in the South.
You gotta have something.
You're not from Portland, and you decide to come to this. No, I'm saying there's racism everywhere.
Too. No. But it's big enough there. It's
No, but she's saying the
this
flavor,
specific brand, this flavor.
The flavor is different.
It'd be one thing if she was from a different part of the country, like Portland, where it don't look like this, and she comes here and she's not familiar, but she's literally familiar with this particular brand of racism. That I'm girl.
If you know you're going in a room full of racists, and you don't. That's where I'm bothered. You don't have it anyway.
So, and let's leave her alone, and now she's here, and she's still thinking oh, Davis, I'm tied up, and he's trying to tell me all this stuff. Well, I won't. How do you think that's going to go over?
Well, I won't. The defiant
which she
is. Crap.
So fine.
Was she? So then his expression shifts from to pleasantly amused
when they knock on the door. Because of course he does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, so So who comes in the room? It is Alice. And she's wearing her polka dot dotted pajamas as if she's sleepwalking. Her face is slack and her eyes are half open. And Isaac is holding her tight.
Do you want to know something?
And then all Bree has for Alice in this moment is yelling her name. She doesn't have a mage flame. If she were Kiyoshi.
So really what we're learning is
who was a teenager when her powers manifested, that man would not have made it past the door. Fair. Is what I'm saying.
This is an aside.
In this moment.
People have talked about the narrator of the audiobook, and some people like her, some people don't. And I didn't have any problem with her, but there's something people have talked about how she sounds like she's crying all the time. And at the time, I was I don't know what y'all talking about, whatever. But reading this line, Alice, I cry, Alice, I can vividly remember hearing it, and I'm oh yeah, she does do it in that voice. That is so true. Because when I'm reading it, it's her almost crying, but I realize it doesn't say she's almost crying. But in my head, she has a teary voice. I'm Alice.
Everything that narrator says is in a crying voice.
Again, before I didn't notice it, I really enjoyed the audiobook, but in this particular line, I can hear it. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Because
I'm
like
sorry
it
to
takes
that
lip
lady,
skill.
but
Like
she's not my ministry.
she's doing the what is it? The Welsh. She's doing the like Southern accent. Like she's covering the. I was impressed, but I hear it. It's true because I'm like she doesn't even say it like that. Now that I'm looking at this in print, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I read the Ray Bear. I was like, oh, she's not a crybaby. She just feels things. Like it was. I totally had a read on her. Like she just like can't deal with anything in the moment. She's just gonna cry about it like the whole time. Like she doesn't have like an actual like ability to try to do. And then when I've actually read it, like just and physically, I was like, oh, she's fine. She's fine. She just is working stuff out. She's not crying the whole like it's. She's not crying through every ordeal. She's just like working things out.
So yeah, they bring Alice in. She's crying Alice because it's all she can do. And Alice is not looking good. She is not well. Alice is not well because Isaac is doing what Isaac's gonna do to her.
So he's basically using her like as a puppet, which is so strange.
Okay, well at least read what it says. So she looks like she's sweating out a fever. Isaac is holding her hands in his like both his hands and is like caressing them, and then Bree's like, don't touch her, and I'm like, girl, this is not even just a complaint about Bree, it's about protagonists who get into these situations. I'm like, girl, what you think you gonna do about it? Like what he's gonna be like, oh okay, let me drop her hand. Like girl, you know he's gonna keep touching her. And Davis says, I'm afraid as Isaac has to keep touching Miss Chin in order for this particular mesmer to continue, and which it will until we come to an understanding. So we're trying to coerce Bree into complying. And then Bree does say, if you don't let her to go, I swear to God, I will tear you apart. Ooh, foreshadowing, but not it wasn't her. Anyway,
at some point we're going to have to talk about what kind of role the Merlins play overall. And I guess different Merlins have different relationships with different people. And I wonder how much of Isaac's relationship with Dud is related to him knowing that he had a previous King's Mage like released or whatever and imprisoned. And so he just how much he goes along for they get along and how much he actually care like doesn't he likes to do it. But what he does is smugly with glee wipe memories of Bree from Alice to Bree's face.
I was gonna say like the one
in her chair.
The one thing about this scene too, I get is like a very what's the word I'm trying to say? Predatory like touching of Alice.
Yeah.
To really like torture Bree. And I was thinking about this too, Porshèa, like how much of this is like, is Isaac actually the kind of Merlin that they are continuously threatening Sel that he'll become, where like, you know, like this is like a crazy, like the demon has kind of taken over, but it doesn't look stereotypically like he's out of control, you know what I mean? But like, what kind of,
he just seems sadistic.
Yeah, like what kind of person are you where like you would gleefully kind of do this thing? Like you have to like, it feels like you're a little bit more demon than human.
Especially to children. Like you're enjoying doing this to children.
Exactly.
Like this is just like
so how much
you're a whole grown adult with a full magic system with a full range of abilities.
Yeah.
But you get your jollies off torturing children.
Yeah, so like how much of it is that, and then how much of it is he knows kind of reminds me of like what we see with like kind of the inverse of Vaughn, like we'll see in like the next couple of chapters too, where it's like he knows that like Dud Davis is his proximity to power and he's okay doing his bidding because it lends him power. And does he feel beholden to him because he became the second King's Mage? Or does he feel like, does he kind of know that like what Davis did to one King's Mage and that could possibly be him next? Like is it based out of fear? I don't think it's based out of fear now because they're older and like he is like enjoying it a little bit too much, right?
But also it's like, so this is what got me too, was that like, and this is where I got annoyed. Well, I've been annoyed the whole time. But whenever Dud signals Isaac to stop, he lets out. He's putting on a show. He's performing. He lets out a tired sigh and says, "Normally, we'd simply mesmer any inconvenient once-borns, but once you've proven a bit, but since you've proven a bit stubborn in that regard, I sent Isaac to collect Miss Shin for some persuasion. You'll have to forgive the dramatics. Merlins are quite showy beings, aren't they?" And he's calling out Isaac for being dramatic and showy when he's the one who's being dramatic, putting on airs, throwing in some poetry, giving you a fairy tale this whole time. And not to mention his whole affected Southern accent when his whole pride is being Welsh and going and still holding lands in Welsh and Wales and stuff like that, right? So like, it's just a lot for him to be calling someone else dramatic when he's the one, like the presiding person over dramatics in their relationship. And it's just interesting to me because I feel like how much of Isaac's relationship with Dud is them performing to each other. So Isaac is performing like is it performatively, or is he actively statistic and like into it, and this is the actual full glee for him, like, and he knows that. How much of it is giving something to Dud? Does he enjoy seeing these performances? Is he like, his jolly's also rocked by seeing the torture? You know what I mean? Like, what is this like nasty little relationship between the two of them? And they can feel each other's energy too because they're bonded. What is that? Like, it's just a lot of like, ew.
Yeah.
All around.
No, I agree. A lot of ew is a actually kind of generous way to put it, I think.
A lot of ew all around.
I'm just gonna wrap it up with like a summary of like, once Bree calls for an end, he threatens her that she must withdraw from the school if she wants him to not torture Alice or anyone else, because they know that she can she's not always affected by the mage or aether. So he's like, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna withdraw from the school. And not that that's going to be too hard, because he has to put it in a little aside of like, that shouldn't be too hard. People will totally believe that your likes or whatever are not going to be able to like hang at the school. He also demands that she doesn't speak to anyone from the order, and when she does finally go to college, to do so in another state. She must also forget about the Legendborn and not contact anyone, including Nick, regarding Legendborn, anyone at all from the order. And if she doesn't, not only will he torture anyone around her, but he also is happy to let the Merlins institutionalize her and experiment on her, because she has this weird ability to not be affected by them, and they definitely want to dig and figure that out. So he asks her, this is the gall that he has, for her consent to his threats, which she has no other choice, as she's stuck to this chair and not pulling out any magecraft at all, accepts.
I do think, though, it's really funny, because I was thinking about, like, why would you, like, in the villain's, like, why would you even give her that choice? Why wouldn't you just throw her in to let the Merlins, like, experiment on her and stuff? Like, why would you give her the choice? And it's because he doesn't actually want to, like, anyone to hear her tell the truth, right? He's still trying to do this incognito in a bit, but
also he's trying to, like, in order to appeal to Nick, he can't come off as too like grandstandy yet. He can't show himself as the villain.
He has to be
it has
like,
to be like,
he told Nick,
Brianna came about that on her own.
Yeah, he told Nick that she quit. And told everyone else, I guess, that she quit. Which is like, how believable is that? But it's definitely more believable if, Nick or Cell decides to hunt her down and she's like, nope, I I couldn't I couldn't hack it through a month into early college. I've decided that it's too hard. Even though I've been doing just fine. I got a C while dealing with demons and secret societies and orders, and my worst grade was a C. But it was just too hard. But if it comes, I guess he's thinking if it comes from her, as opposed to like, oh, I've just disappeared her and she's in like the Merlin Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like research center, that it's more believable and it will keep Nick in line. Don't believe it.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a mess. Things are a mess. And honestly, all could have been avoided if we thought a little.
Stan had a chat about racism. You know? Sometimes, you know what? This is now because this is the real lesson from the story from this.
Sometimes
episode.
you have to have that uncomfortable conversation right away.
Sometimes that conversation that everyone is like, oh, can we just skip it? This conversation really serve purpose? Yes, it does. Sometimes having that conversation might just keep you from sitting in a chair tied up.
Your best friend losing her memories.
The more you know.
That was chapter 47. Who's your MVP for this cluster of chapters? Delia?
Zelda. Because nobody else was acting right. But also Cell, again, for several reasons. He sees Bree. He thinks he's oriented towards Bree, like we said. And he is also very aware of what it is, like, as far as, like, the order and stuff. Like, you can see it in his actions. He been new. He's the only one that's got a little bit of sense in him these whole chapters. So
I made Cell my MVP plus Bree. Cell because of everything you said, but also because as much as I am like because I'm just a hard sell with romance, and he sold the whole dance. Like, he really just gives like good dance partner vibes. And I feel like it's like, it shouldn't be that hard to make sense in a room full of people who are not making sense, and somehow that's where Cell ends up standing. And I love and hate that he's the only person in the room concerned about Bree's safety. Like, what's going on? But Bree, I also like, even though she was out of it and so not, I feel like she did the best she could do when it came to, I gotta accept the protagonist she is and not the protagonist she's not. Because of course she were in a situation.
This was a whole different story in a whole different universe with a whole different lore system.
Right. I'm just saying, like, if she were Kyoshi oriented, right?
She's not Kyoshi coded enough for Porshèa.
But I feel like because, like, how are you gonna be a protagonist with powers and you're stuck in a wooden chair? Like, even a non-powered being like the Iron Widow can get herself out of a freaking wooden chair. But okay, so that's where I am. But I do want to give props to Bree for, as much as we went hard on her for not rising to the racist occasion, I feel like that is a part of her brain, and this is stuff that she needs to go to therapy for, quite frankly, of where she compartmentalized. That was compartmentalization, Bree, where she was like, in the moment, split second, deciding she was not going to deal with the racism that she just encouraged. She was instead going to run off that energy by having spicy time with Nick. And while I don't agree with the thinking here, it doesn't sound like any of us do, I do appreciate that she protected her peace in the moment, even though that protection came to an like exact and direct end with very little time. So I give it to her only to that. Like, so it's kind of like a half a point for Bree for the MVP, but mostly so.
She's like, Bree MVP for chapter 45.
For that one. Yeah.
Period. So first off, I was, before we got into chapters 46 and 47, I did have Bree marked as my MVP, and as we were going through chapter 46, I just had to erase that. Yeah, I don't know why when I was reading it without talking to you guys alone, I was just mad at Nick. And then, like, during our conversation, I got more and more mad at Bree as well. So because of that, my MVP is Cell for all of the reasons Delia mentioned, and Tracy because as I was reading it, Tracy is a fan of the Oxford comma, and I love that. I caught it a couple of times.
Which one is? I always get it confused. Is Oxford comma the one where it's there's a comma before the and?
Yes.
Or is it the one without the comma?
It's the one with the comma before the and.
Okay, because that's the one I F with. I do not F with taking the comma away.
Yes.
I'm like, give me dang commas. I need to know the pause.
Yep.
I need to know the pause.
And that those are two separate things, not like this and that comma, whatever. So just shout out to Tracy for, writing these chapters was very, very rude, but at least she had the Oxford comma in there to like soothe my soul at many points when I was going through these sentences being like, I am not okay. So yeah, so I love Cell, and I've loved him since the first time he stepped his emo soft boy ass on that cliff, until this chapter and beyond. But you have to give it to him in this cluster of chapters for all of the things that like we were ragging on him about for being volatile and being like emo and moody. He takes those same qualities in this cluster of chapters, but because Bree's got a new perspective and has like also knows more about his past and his family and like what that threat of like going crazy is doing to him, it just like makes it even more like interesting and I guess lovable. But I just literally like love that Cell leaving Nick and Bree alone in chapter 46, like partially was like, I can't watch this girl who I'm developing feelings for make out with this boy who I had feelings for, but also because in my brain, I cannot get away from him being like, these are the two dumbest motherfuckers, and I really need them to focus. And so
he's like, we interrupt our scheduled programming for this.
Yeah.
This.
He's like, it couldn't be me. As much as I want Brianna, I would never.
Now it's not the time.
I know there is a time and place.
Hormones racing at the speed of light, but girl.
Yeah.
Benched, I got it.
Who's benched? Yeah.
Y'all, people gonna be mad at me. I'm benching Bree. Sorry. Yeah, but I mean, like, specifically, Nick was on one, but first of all, I feel like I can rely on one of y'all's gonna bench him, maybe, probably. Or the people at home, like, y'all got it, but Bree, really, this whole, like, she was not at her best, and I'm not even saying she needs to be Kyoshi about it, and, like, it's just, I get the compartmentalization, but I just find it hard, very difficult, in fact, to read any Black person, or any person of color, let's just be real, going through what she went through at that gala and just being like, I'm having a good time. This is fun. I'm actually enjoying myself. I need to like press like my hands against my cheeks to calm down because I'm just having the best time. I'm like, girl. Or like then to be left alone, like
make out.
She's so compartmentalized that even when Nick's like, don't say something, like be like, hey, don't leave me alone. She's like, it's fine. Oh, the knock on the door, that's definitely him. I'm completely safe. I'm like, girl.
She's gonna feel. She did not
lack of thought. Like, I know. Like, not people.
Her danger alert system in her brain.
It's not
I just need
doing
to know
what it needs to do.
It is. Like where her grandma is her grandma taking up that space where the alert sign should be? Like
I feel like we might have to give Nick a little MVP-ish, like a sticker, a good whatever sticker, because the makeout was so good. Apparently,
no, never.
That he just
never.
All the
before she even got made out with, she was already on some BS. Before they even kissed, they were on some BS.
But after they kissed, she was like, "Let's open doors, let's giggle and yelp, let's swing around."
Yeah, okay. He doesn't get MVP. He just gets like a bonus, like a little bonus badge for like, okay, you did do that.
A little like, okay.
It's like no.
But he doesn't.
I see you, Nick. I see you, Nicholas.
He got the move.
Because of the imagery that just appeared in my head, it was a bone, and I'm just like,
bye.
Goodbye, Porshèa. They are children. Not really, but still.
But also throw him a bone.
Okay, we'll throw him a singular bone.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she gets benched. I'm sorry. It's lack of thought. And then again, like Porshèa pointed out, I didn't even pick up on that part, but when she gets to the like Dud Davis, like talking to her, like she's acting, I would say she acts shocked exactly, but she's like acting like this is surprising to her in a way that I'm like, girl, what?
She is more thrown off by him being a villain than she is by anything else that comes out of his mouth.
I do think, and I think I said this earlier too, like one of the things I don't love about Bree, but I think is important in how it was written, especially when we're talking about like her not knowing anything about magic or the order before she runs into them, is that she does take, like, she's learning about this world from the lens of people who grew up in this cult. So she takes a lot of this stuff at face value. And like her, as much as it's kind of the same thing as Nick, as much as like she says that she's not working with them and she's working against them, everyone talks about Dud Davis with such like reverence, and that he's pretentious, but he has like the order's best interest in mind. And like Nick being like, my dad hated what happened to my mom and is mad at the Regents too. And so she takes all of that at face value, and it really comes to a head here when she's like, what you mean you're the baddie?
Yeah. Here's another thing, and again, I'm not a Bree apologist. Sadly, I feel like Bayana is probably more of a Bree apologist for our who's not here. But I will say on Bree's side, because I've been having this moment a lot more and more where I'm like trying to be more thoughtful to this, is that like she's in a life moment where she's not been around corrupt people in this way. Like this is her first life. As far as well as she knows, this is what she's supposed to take or whatever. Like as like Robyn was saying about how like she's using other people's actions and reactions to help gauge her, like how she decides on things. But I think that like how else is she gonna learn the signs of who a bad person is besides going through and seeing a bad person reveal themselves, right? Like I'm jaded, have watched I don't know, because she's also a similar fan as I am. Like I've always been really into books. I've always been really into like TV shows and stuff. And I do take some things like for personality traits very seriously. I'm like, if someone gives signs like this or this, that's shifty and I don't trust it. And whether it's in a book or in real life, I'm like, that seems wrong. But I feel like unless it's some people are like, she gives that vibe because she's a protagonist, and that's a vibe a lot of protagonists have of like, they don't learn the lesson until they live through the lesson. Not because someone told them better or because they've seen it play out before. She learns the lesson because she goes through the lesson. So I try to give her grace for that and like, you know, her reaction to stuff. But it still doesn't explain the racism reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah, because she went through that shit and was like, ooh, but the lips were kiss swollen.
Like it just flew by her. She was like,
the lids were heavy.
Nothing to do with me.
I don't. I've read too many YA fantasy adventure to like be able to excuse that in a way. Like I can adjust for understanding the type of character I'm reading in a certain stage of life. That one though, that one's not it. And like I say that,
I feel like we're the meme for community. Like, I can excuse being a teenager, but I draw the line.
Like as a person who grew up pretty sheltered, like mixed race also, like that's a whole dynamic. Like I can kind of understand like really just not. And also I was very much a Hermione kid. Like I respected authority to a fault. Like it's not until hindsight that I look back like they were just being racist to you. But I was like, I guess I'm wrong. I don't know. Like, it's taken, so I could kind of understand. Yeah, I was such a rule follower that even racist things that were happening to me in rules did go over my head to an extent. So like, I can understand to an extent being like, okay, but even in that youth,
they grabbed your body, girl.
They grabbed your body and literally said like slurs to you. So
nappy-headed. We all.
In fact, coming from that like, perspective, girl, it would have been more shocking. So she should have had a bigger reaction, if anything. But
that's what I was. You know what? I think that's why I was more blown about her being so surprised.
It was in her face.
You just went through the major racism, and you're surprised by. You're not surprised by this. You're not reacting to this, but you're reacting to this right here. Like, just because, is it because you're chained down in the chair? Is it the only reason why you're realizing?
Oh man.
I feel like that's what I'm saying. I feel like she hides from him, like, as an avoidant person. I feel like she avoids her issues at the moment by going on to the next thing. And to the next thing was, instead of not making this thing about Cell trying to get me to safety and me actually living in the moment of needing to be safe, I'm gonna change course and avoid the situation as a whole and thinking about it as a whole by going to Nick instead. And that celebration just that's what throws me. Sorry. So speaking of Nick and celebrations, he's on my bench, as is his dead father, as is Isaac, the sadistic Merlin. Like, all of them are highly benched. It's probably does not need a lot of explanation. You've heard the episode. This is how we feel. I just honestly though, like, I get why Bree looks at like Dead Davis as the authority figure to at least be the buck steps here in like accountability, looking for accountability within an authority figure. Like, I feel like that is very much something that I did have to get disillusioned from over time, of like how many people actually avoid accountability even if they're in this position where they're supposed to be held accountable for stuff. So I can understand some of her surprise there, I guess. Again, it's her first time learning that people do this crap to her face. But he is such a shoddy person, such a crappy person. And again, the whole doing torture to teens as a whole grown man and willing to put your own child in. That's what I think, as I've also become more and more attuned to, is that if people are willing to do crap to their own kin, then why would you ever think they'd be nice to anyone else? Like, why? They don't even know why you think they're going to be nice to them, to you. They don't understand it. They're like, why would I do that? I would put my own kid through a desert. I would put my own kid through a barrage of missiles. That sounds fine to me. And so why would I be nice to you? And I feel like that's straight up and down what's happening here. And I think I probably will end up mentioning him every episode for the rest of the book. I'm feeling what I feel for what's coming up in the next couple of episodes, but I could be wrong. So I hope he gets very comfortable on the bench, because he's going to be sitting here for a while.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad about it, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't. So I benched the Davises, both generations, Nick and because I feel like Nick having that, like, oh, I'm going to be king and there's responsibility, and he has Simba'd himself through many chapters in this book so far, and then just dropping the ball when it comes to like the immediate safety of the person that he supposedly loves and cares about, and the way in which he drops the ball is just inexcusable to me. And I just can't move past that. And like, just not even okay, you didn't think about what the reaction would be, or you thought the reaction would be shock, but not as violent or whatever. But like, then to like see her and not even ask if she's okay, not even like feel any sense of remorse for putting her in that position.
That's what I'm saying. I knew y'all were gonna make him so good.
Let's just make out.
No forethought.
No, none.
No post.
No, none.
No mid
thought.
No thought.
No thought. No thought.
No.
Just nothing but ether between the brain cells. Just air and ether in between the ears. And then Dud Davis, obviously, because
and jealousy.
And
jealousy.
Yeah.
He can still do jealousy.
Oh, yeah. He could definitely.
So he's perceptive enough to see that something's going on with Elle and Bree, but
yeah, but not perceptive enough about just the entire like organization in which he has grown up in and around. And then Dud Davis, of course, just because like all this shit, because you just couldn't handle like being an almost prom king, or being
And you never would have got it.
Yeah,
that's the funniest part to me. Is you were never gonna be the scion.
You were never gonna.
It was never gonna be you, boo. It was never gonna be you.
Never.
Was never gonna be you.
Or you know what it is like? Okay, so this is
you are not suited for the one you thought you were gonna get.
This is very Robyn, and it's the girls who get it. You two are not these girls, but the girls who get it. In 2020, the University of Oregon women's basketball team thought that they had that in the bag. Okay, they were already like, we champs, whatever. And then COVID happened, and they canceled the entire tournament. And to this day, some very mid Sabrina Ionescu, I'm calling you, will stand 10 toes down on if they would have had the tournament in 2020, we would have won it all. Which is like, you can't say that. You don't know. Like, sucks that there was a global pandemic and like, oh, maybe we want to take 2 seconds to think about all of the people who actually were like impacted by that and not about this tournament, which I love, but like, it's not that important in the grand scheme of the world. But also, you cannot walk around like you won something that did not happen.
Mm-hmm. But also, it's very convenient that you've made up a world under which like this you prevailed.
Yeah,
you were there. There's, you know what I mean? Like, it's very convenient that like that wasn't tested and it can't be tested, and therefore you can't be pushed back upon per se.
Yeah.
But you want like it's just those are some sad people. It's like you put your whole life on the line for that.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Like, you had no other prospects but that thing happening for you, and when it didn't come through, then that's all that takes.
It's living in the past or living in the glory of something that never happened.
Mm-hmm. And it will never. It won't ever happen. It won't ever happen.
So yeah, so that's what Dud Davis gives me. He gives me Sabrina Ionescu and the 2020 University of Oregon women's basketball team.
The girlies who get it. I don't, but I mean, I hear you. I hear the vibe.
I understand. Yeah. Like, you explained it well enough that I'm with you on this ride. Yeah. And that's it for today's episode. Want to give special thanks to our special friend here, Delia, for joining us. And can you please make sure that the audience knows where they can follow and find you?
You can find me around. I'm just kidding. You can find me on my podcast, Culture by Culture. You can go to culturexpodcast.com or find it on Twitter and Instagram at culturexpodcast. You can find me at Delia is Typing basically anywhere. I do, nerd out about Asian pop culture, but all pop culture. I love fantasy. I love Lord of the Rings. I go here, you go here, y'all know. So follow your girl, follow the podcast.
I don't, but yes.
Well, okay, yes.
And we also want to give a special thanks to everyone who's listening. Make sure you join us next week when we discuss chapters 48 through 50.
Oh God, we are so close to the end, and I'm so excited. Wizard Team is a part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. We'll see you next week.
Woo! Bye.
Bye.